Parents dumped grandma on me for 5 years. It's your job now, sister joked. I pulled out 50 pages of care logs and billed them $85,000. Pay up or I sue. There are families who do not yell, strike, or curse, but instead engage in more brutal behavior. They turn one person into a long-term backup plan. When they want to have fun, that individual remains behind to tackle the difficult tasks. When they seek peace, they are expected to remain silent and swallow it. On Thanksgiving, they'll even leave a note cold as an invoice saying, "We went to a show with your brother's family, consider this your caregiving experience." The goal is always the same. The one that is closest, the softest, and has been groomed to think everything is good as long as grandma is okay. People love to say that family comes first, but if family simply means your sacrifice and their comfort, what are you holding on to? Before we get started on today's story, please let us know where you are watching from. It's always amazing to see where our stories go. Remember to subscribe so you don't miss the next twist in this journey. Now let us listen to him from the heart. They always call the person who is nearest. It was 9:15 inches the morning. My coffee had already gotten cold. My inbox was overflowing with unread mails, and I still hadn't touched the design files that were due by the end of the day. But my mind was not focused on work. Not really. It was never fully there anymore. Instead, it was shattered by the familiar dread that came with waking up to the first buzz of a text from my mother. I live alone in a little one-bedroom apartment in Asheville, North Carolina. It's peaceful, filled with plants I try not to harm, and coffee mugs I rarely wash on time. It should have been a peaceful location. However, when you are the only adult child within a 20-minute radius of your aging grandma and are self-employed with a flexible schedule, peace becomes a notion rather than a practice. My phone vibrated again. "Emily, please stop by today. Margaret's meds are running low. Also, check her BP log and confirm the Thursday appointment. We'll be tied up all day." In a bind. That is what they have always said. I looked at my hands. Years of using alcohol wipes and hand sanitizer had left them cracked and dry. I had no idea I had internalized the caretaker routine until my knuckles began splitting every winter like clockwork. Most families, I believe, function on love. Mine relies on delegation, and by family duty, they really mean Emily will do it. I grumbled, put on a hoodie, and grabbed my keys. My childhood home is a pale blue colonial with white shutters and a porch swing that has not been used in 12 years, just outside Asheville. It is currently home to my grandma, Margaret, or Margaret as she is affectionately known. After she injured her hip 3 years ago, my parents demanded that she stay with them for monitoring. However, oversight quickly became into surveillance, and that responsibility fell to me. By the time I arrived, the driveway was empty. Of course it was. Mom and Dad had essential errands to run. Nathan and Madison, my brother and sister-in-law, were overwhelmed by the children's schedules. But Margaret was just where she always was, slumped softly in her armchair by the window, a crocheted blanket pulled over her lap, the television on mute. I completed my rounds, checked the medication organizer, replenished her prescriptions for the next several days, examined her blood pressure log, noted down the forthcoming appointments, threw out expired yogurt from the fridge, and cleaned the kitchen counter clean. All this happened without anyone asking how I was doing. Then followed the customary script. "Emily, you're the only one who really understands how to care for her," Mom stated when she eventually called. "You've always had such a gentle soul." That phrase makes me want to shout. This is not a compliment. It's a code word for you, the person we can most easily guilt. When I mentioned that I had deadlines, she did not argue. She just said, "Well, you can work at night, can't you?" I didn't react. While she was talking, I went into the living room. Margaret remained on the chair, her eyes half closed. "Are you all right today, Margaret?" I said softly. No response. I moved closer. She moved slightly, turned her head, and did something unusual. For a brief period, her gaze was fixed on mine. Not hazy or lost as usual, crisp and calculated. Her lips did not move, only her stare. It lingered, as if she were measuring something in me. I groped for the small black notebook nestled between the cushion and the edge of the chair, one I had never observed before. The moment my fingertips touched it, her hand flew out, far too quickly. She grasped the notebook, tucked it into her blanket, and leaned back, closed her eyes as if she hadn't moved. I felt a cold run through my body. I stood there for a long time, attempting to shake it off. Then I grabbed my luggage and snuck out. Back home, I flopped on the couch, exhausted. I scrolled through my phone, opening my texts. "Jules, are you still alive in there?" I asked, half joking. "Me, barely. I think I got gaslit by a woman in a bathrobe today. She called me right away." "You're not doing great," Jules said after I told her everything. "You don't even realize how much this is breaking you down, do you?" "I'm fine," I'd said. I despised how insignificant it felt to even complain. I was so used to carrying the weight that speaking it out made me feel theatrical and selfish. "It's just Thanksgiving week," I reminded myself. Same as every year. Except, as I climbed into bed and set my alarm, my phone chimed again. 7 missed calls, all from Mom. Something clenched in my chest. This year would not be like the previous ones. I felt it. The call arrived at 7:45 a.m. I hadn't even brushed my teeth when the screen displayed her name. Again, Emily. Mom's voice was shrill, pinched with disapproval. You didn't answer yesterday. I called twice. I was working, I replied. Deadlines, a beat of quiet. Well, we have exciting news, she said, shifting gears so quickly that it gave me whiplash. We're doing something special for Thanksgiving this year. I knew I wouldn't like what came next. She got right into it. They had planned a 4-day excursion to New York City, including Broadway shows, hotel bookings, and dinner with old friends. Just the 4 of us, she exclaimed joyfully. 4, I repeated. Mom did not miss a beat. Me, Dad, Nathan, and Madison. My stomach sank. So, I'm not invited? You've got something even more important, she said softly. You'll be staying with Margaret for only 4 days, darling. My jaw clenched. You didn't even ask me. Her tone quickly changed. Emily, she's your grandmother. She's your mother, I replied. When was the last time you stayed with her overnight? Mom did not respond. Instead, she reached for the dagger. I just thought you, of all people, would understand how much this means to us. You know how to be compassionate. There it was, the manipulation cocktail. 1 part remorse, 1 part martyrdom, and 1 part flattery. I'm not doing it, I replied plainly. I have plans. There was silence on the other end. Then fine, I'll let your father call you. She hung up. I had just finished processing it when my phone rang again. Dad. His voice was calm and measured. Hey, son, I understand you're feeling a bit overwhelmed. You think we're not asking you to give up your life, Emily, just to step in for a few days. It would mean a lot. You've never asked, I retorted. You've always assumed. More stillness. Look, he finally continued, if 4 days is too much, maybe you could just stop by Thursday morning. She's been asking about you. That stopped me. Not because I believed him, but because of how quickly he moved. Dad was never one to compromise. If he made a smaller request, it was because of a larger setup. Nonetheless, I agreed carefully. Morning only, I said. I'm not staying overnight. Of course, he replied too casually. That's perfect. After the call, I roamed my apartment restlessly. Something seemed odd, too smooth. I called Jules again. They're baiting you, she stated without hesitation. They want you to say yes to the small thing so they can trap you with the big thing. I know, I was saying. But I need to show up just once, otherwise they'll weaponize it for months. Then you show up, she added, but you say this out loud and frequently. I'm here for a visit, I'm not the caregiver this week. Say it until it's in their bones. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. Thanksgiving morning was 3 days away. I quickly texted to confirm. Me. I'll swing by Thursday morning for a visit. I'm not staying, just visiting. Mom responded immediately. Perfect. That word chilled me further than it should have. She seemed to have been waiting for it, as if the plan had already begun, and I walked right into it. I awoke early on Thanksgiving morning with a plan so solid in my mind that it felt laminated. I wasn't staying. I was not going to be pulled into another guilt-ridden weekend of quiet agony, just a short, pleasant visit on my terms. I packed a small tote, a few pre-cut fruit cups, Margaret's favorite herbal tea with the little lemon bees on the package, her arthritis gel, and a printout of some images I took on a hike last month. The type of items you bring when you're dropping in rather than setting up camp. The drive back to my folks' home in the Asheville suburbs was peaceful. Fog loomed low over the Blue Ridge, creating a hushed atmosphere of anticipation. I pulled into the driveway and observed the first red flag before the engine had started. There are no cars, not my father's old Buick, nor my mother's CRV. Nathan's SUV wasn't present either. I frowned. Maybe they were out getting coffee. Or maybe the concert began early. Still, something felt odd. Inside, the lights were turned on, but the home was absolutely silent. There was no clatter of dishes, no smell of stuffing, only stillness and the gentle hum of the refrigerator. Hello, I said, already knowing I wouldn't get a response. I strolled through the living room and noticed her. Margaret, snuggled up in her normal chair, covered under a fleece blanket, eyes closed, lips slightly open, frail and little. I paused for a moment, instincts firing. I moved closer and caressed her wrist. Warm pulse, constant relief, but something seemed scripted. I proceeded to the kitchen, where I noticed it. A single sheet of paper sat squarely in the midst of the island, waiting near the salt shaker as if it were fighting not to blow away from the truth it contained. My stomach churned before I even started reading it. Mom's handwriting was unmistakable, with its tight, firm loops. It stated, "Gone to a show with your brother's family, so we'll let you experience caregiving. Food's in the fridge, no thank you, no hope. This isn't too much." It had that icy, clipped tone that always disguised manipulation as responsibility. I stood there for a long time, the silence becoming oppressive. They didn't just leave. They had planned and built this. There was no backup care, and no call to see whether I was available. There is no trace of negotiation, only assumptions and directives masquerading as fate. I stared at the paper. My fingers wrapped around it, crumpled it, and smoothed it out again. Part of me wanted to go back out and leave the house empty. But I understood how the tale would be spun. He abandoned her. He left an elderly woman alone on a holiday. Isn't that the trap? They don't bind you, but they make sure every exit ends in shame. I turned back to Margaret. She had not moved. Same blanket, same partially open mouth. I exhaled. Guess it's just you and me today, I said, setting the tea on the counter. Something moved in the corner of my eye. I turned completely, and my breath stuck in my throat. She sat up, not drowsy or bewildered, but with precision. Her back is straight, and her eyes are clear. She stood with little wobble or hesitancy. She looked directly at me, her speech clear. Shall we begin? I did not respond immediately away. I merely looked, my thoughts rewriting themselves in real time. Eventually, I nodded. My phone vibrated sharply and suddenly. I cast a downward glance. Mom, of course. Her name flashed over the screen like a warning siren. She knew. And I knew it was the moment she had been waiting for all along. I did not pick up. I let the phone beep until the screen turned black again. Then I looked at Margaret. Really looked. She was completely upright, barefoot but steady. Her hand braced against the back of the chair for effect rather than support. The blanket had dropped onto the floor. Her expression was anything but fragile. No fog, no confusion. You're not. I began but couldn't continue. She saved me from difficulty. No, I'm not confused. I haven't been in a while. I opened my lips again, closed it, and sat down. She turned to face the hallway. Lock the door, she instructed. Then grab your phone, you'll want to take pictures. Of what? Everything. She wasn't joking. In the kitchen, I photographed the paper with her tea-stained mug beside it, the microwave's date, the unopened casserole dish in the fridge, and the quiet driveway outside the front window. I even saw the flashing red dot of the Ring camera by the door recording an entire day's worth of nothing. When I returned, she was sat again, with a faded leather notebook in her lap. I knew that notepad. It was the one I had tried to look at weeks before, but she had pushed it away as a reflex. She handed it to me. Inside were pages of beautifully written entries, dated and underlined notes on talks, observations, and exact quotes from my parents and brother Nathan. They think I don't remember, she explained. So they talk in front of me even when they're plotting. She pointed to one entry. On October 12th, Rebecca says, "We'll go to the show. Emily will cave if we leave it in his lap." David chuckles. Nathan responds, "Good, maybe it'll knock the city out of him." I read it twice. She tapped the next entry. October 29th. They practice the story about dementia. David reminds them that I feel worse in the nights. Rebecca says I'll play along. She likes him. I looked up, astonished. "You've been keeping a record for over a year?" She responded, "Ever since I started seeing what they were doing, I let them think I was too far gone. It made them careless." "And the tea?" I inquired about the napping. "Sometimes I was tired," she admitted with a shrug. "But most of the time I was listening." I flipped ahead. Pages of it. Quotes, times, what medication she was given and who administered it. They started locking her checkbook in the file drawer. "They're trying to get guardianship," she explained. "Or at least that was the plan. David's been speaking with a lawyer." My skin prickled. "What for?" "To sign over power of attorney. But they need me confused or better yet gone." That's when it hit me. The show was not about the show. It was a smokescreen. An opportunity to catch me in the act and allow them to return home with whatever narrative they wanted. "He's not stable," he lashed out. She got scared. "We need to step in for her safety." I sat back. "So what now?" She delved into the cushion next to her and handed me another list. 4 basic steps to chill. Step 1. Document everything. The note, the house, her lucidity, and the heedless drive. Check. Step 2. Call your mother quietly. Tell her she has 1 hour to return. Do not yell, do not plead. Just a deadline. Give her the chance to make the proper decision. Step 3. If they return and begin telling stories, do not disagree. Do not strive to win. Let them hang themselves with their own words and contact the elder care ombudsman. You want me to threaten them with legal action? I want you to remind them they're not invisible. I was staring at the roster. 4 lines. Years of fatigue crammed onto a single page. I took up the phone again and dialed. Margaret stretched out and placed her hand on my wrist before pushing the call button. "Say only 3 sentences, she asked quietly. "Keep them short. Keep them sharp. Time is the only thing that scares them now." The telephone rang. Once, twice, then I heard her voice, and I was prepared. I dialed. The phone rang once and again. My thumb hovered above the speaker icon, but I kept it near my ear. I needed to hear her raw, unfiltered. "Emily," my mother said, her voice as sweet as syrup left out in the sun. "Everything okay with Grandma?" I didn't react right away. I gazed at the document that remained on the counter, which she had signed with careless harshness. "I'm standing in your kitchen," I explained quietly. "Right now, looking at the note you left, the one under the salt shaker." I've taken a photo of it, time-stamped, clear as day. There was a pause, a shallow gasp. I told you I'd come by this morning, not stay for 4 days. I didn't agree to caregiving, you know. Her voice slid immediately back into gear. Honey, you're already there. Let's just breathe, okay? There's no need to make this a thing. That's always been her approach, identifying the anguish as as if I were summoning the storm. She tried again. Emily, this is family, we all make sacrifices. I almost laughed. Not because it was humorous, but because it was so predictable. Emily, she said you can't leave her alone. You're not that kind of person. You'll do the right thing. That was the solution. My throat tightened and my teeth gritted. Because, to her, my boundaries were merely background noise, static to be ignored. I took in slow, controlled breaths. Then I delivered the 3 phrases, harsh and definitive. You have 1 hour to return, I said. If no one returns by then, I'll contact Adult Protective Services and report this as abandonment of an elder. I'll stay for exactly 1 hour, and if the house is still empty, I'll follow through. I hung up before she could turn the stillness to her advantage. Almost instantly, my phone began to buzz. Once, twice, and again. I did not pick up. Nathan sent a text. Don't blow this out of proportion. It's Thanksgiving. Another message. This time, my father's voice was calm but broken on the edges. You're making this worse than it has to be, son. We're all tired. Let's not turn this into a disaster. Margaret was looking at me. She was already seated at the kitchen table, her notebook open and eyes alert. Let's get to work, she said. We documented everything. The kitchen clock, the fridge stocked with 4 days' worth of food, her unmedicated clarity, the absence of any scheduled substitute care. Every corner of the house told the same story. They had not left by chance. They had not forgotten. This was deliberate. I took the Ring camera footage and exported clips of the empty driveway, timed and labeled them, and then saw it. A piece of paper titled Emergency Contacts was tucked under a magnet near the fridge, with Mom, Dad, Nathan, and a neighbor I didn't recognize listed beneath it in careful bullet points. With love from your family was written at the bottom in looping cursive. I held it up. They staged this, I explained. Margaret nodded. Of course, if anything went wrong, they'd tell people they prepared that they left love. And you'd be the one who panicked, who made it dramatic. It wasn't about care. It never was. It was about optics control. Guilt leveraged as a leash. They're protecting their narrative, I mumbled. They always have been, she explained. The clock ticked. 30 minutes passed, then 50. After 50 minutes, my phone lit up again. Dad, this time I responded. We'll be there soon, he announced. I'll swing by in a bit. Your mom's still at the venue with Nathan and Madison, but I'll check in. He's the only one. I saw it clearly. They were attempting to establish just enough presence to avoid legal consequences. Only enough to blur the lines. I stepped onto the front porch as his car entered the driveway. He stepped out slowly, hands in jacket pockets, as if he had nothing to hide. He smiled tightly. Emily. I did not move. I'm not here to argue, he explained. Just wanted to make sure everything's all right. How long are you staying? I inquired. He paused. Not long. Just checking in. Of course. They were attempting to communicate without accepting responsibility. Inside, Margaret handed me a list. Times, names, newspaper from the fridge, and a fresh cup of tea. Keep it all, she instructed. They don't fear your anger, they fear your evidence. I stayed on the porch until Dad drove away, offering a vague, we'll talk later. Back inside, Margaret quietly stated, it's time for part 2. I looked at her. You're not going to argue anymore, she said. You're going to leave, and you're going to do it in a way that leaves them no time to rewrite the story. She took me to the bedroom. I hadn't been in that room since I was a child, where bedtime stories once echoed, and the curtains never changed. She moved slowly, but purposefully, toward the tall dresser near the window. She pulled a thick manila envelope from the bottom drawer beneath a pile of wool scarves and handed it to me for the next 3 years. She said, I've been waiting for the right moment. I opened it. Inside, a cognitive evaluation signed by Dr. Elkins 6 weeks ago. A letter from an elder law attorney confirming active counsel states, patient is lucid, stable, and capable of all legal decision-making. A notarized copy of the last will and testament. Several printed documents contain scribbled notes and timestamps. I opened the will first. She'd named me primary beneficiary with full explanation to Emily, my only grandchild, who saw me as a person, not a burden, and who stayed out of love rather than obligation. I looked up, stunned. I wanted them to underestimate me, she explained. It bought me time. It bought us this. You've been planning this? I inquired. She nodded. They tried for years. Little questions about signatures, casual comments about just in case. I knew what they were after, but I kept quiet. I let them think they were winning. I sank into the chair beside her dresser. They wanted you isolated, she explained. If you took care of me, they could paint you as unstable, codependent, easy to discredit. But the moment you stood up for me, really stood up, they'd flip it, say you were dangerous, overwhelmed, a threat. I swallowed the note they had left. It wasn't carelessness, it was bait, she told me, and now they're realizing it didn't work. She gave me another list. Here's what you need, she explained. Grab your bag, take that envelope, get in the car, and leave before they get smart enough to circle back. I nodded. The house felt like a crime scene. Not chaotic, just wrong, and engineered. I took my bag from the guest room, tucked the envelope inside, and zipped it closed. Before I locked the door, I put one last thing on the kitchen counter. A short and direct letter. I am not abandoning Margaret. She is of sound mind. This house was left empty for nearly an hour with no caregiver present. All legal steps have been taken. She is not your pawn. She is her own person. I left it exactly where they'd left it under the salt shaker. As I drove out of the driveway, my phone lit up again. Mom, you missed 6 calls. Nathan, where the hell are you? You aren't taking her anywhere. Dad, you have a voicemail. You are overreacting. Just come back, and we can talk. But they were no longer in charge of the story. I didn't respond. I saved all messages. I got on the highway, heading east. Margaret sat beside me, seatbelt fastened, eyes fixed ahead. Then she said softly, like a quiet prophecy, 4 days from now, they won't be looking for you in this house anymore. They'll be looking for you online. That is how long it took for silence to become sirens. Margaret and I didn't say much during those days in Santal. We did not need to. There was a rhythm between us, light meals and beach walks, her hands folded in her lap as she listened to the waves, and I sat nearby, cataloging everything. Screenshots, voicemails, timestamps, missed calls, manipulative text messages, and half-hearted attempts. Where are you left dangling on the edge of guilt? You need to let them speak, she said, eyes closed and voice steady. Not to you, to the world. People tell the truth when they're panicked. They just don't mean to. On the 4th day, I awoke to the sound of waves and war. My phone lit up like a wildfire. Mom had posted on Facebook. She never mentioned my name. She did not have to. The passive-aggressive tone was a signature. Heartbreaking Thanksgiving. NN. When a family member walks away from their duties, the ones who suffer most are the elderly. We had everything set, meds, food, emergency contacts. But sometimes, no matter how much you prepare, some just vanish. The feedback arrived with a roar. Cousin Diane, so sorry, Aunt Rebecca. Some people forget what real family means. Mrs. Carmichael is an old neighbor. Unbelievable. Poor Miss Margaret. You raised your son better than this. It wasn't all guilt. It was a strategy. A reframe. They had not left me with the burden. They had handed me a narrative. And now they were preparing it for public consumption. I did not flinch. I scrolled. I cataloged. Every lie is expertly tucked between just enough truth to appear credible. But they had no idea I had been documenting everything. I opened my camera roll. A photo of the Let You Experience Caregiving note taped to the refrigerator. The driveway was empty at 9:13 a.m. When I stepped in, the microwave clock was flashing 9:15. A wide shot of the barren kitchen, and another of the untouched pill organizer. Doorbell camera footage is timestamped. They departed before I arrived. Nobody returned. I sat down, opened my laptop, and started writing the post Margaret and I had been quietly working on. I titled it The Truth. I was asked to stop by Thanksgiving morning. I said yes for an hour, maybe 2. When I arrived, the house was vacant. Nobody had told me they were leaving town. A note sat on the refrigerator. My grandmother, who was recovering alone, was left without warning. I was not informed, I was not consulted, I got punished. I attached just enough images. No drama, facts, timestamps, or boundaries. Caregiving should never be a weapon, and family isn't love if it's used to trap someone. I'm not telling this story to exact revenge, I'm telling you so that it doesn't happen to anyone else. I posted it, then turned off my phone. It was the first match. The fire did not spread slowly, it exploded. Jules commented, "First, I was there when Emily got the call. It was a setup. He was blindsided. This isn't family. It's exploitation." Within hours, the post was being shared by people I didn't know. Others, caregivers, arranged children, volunteers, added their own stories. Groups from outside Asheville picked it up, blogs reposted, a local news account DM'd me, and suddenly, I wasn't just dealing with my family. I was holding a mirror up to a society that hides manipulation under the banner of tradition. Then came the backlash. My father sent a cold, calculated email. "Your recent actions are concerning. We ask that you stop misrepresenting the family. This emotional reaction is not only immature, it borders on defamation. Please consider your mental state before continuing." Translation: We're losing control. Let's question yours. Then Nathan texted me, "Delete the post or I swear to God you won't have a place in this town. We'll make sure of it." That was the moment I realized they were shifting tactics. No longer denying what they'd done. Now they were attacking who I was, undermining my stability, planting seeds. Next came the accusation. "We're worried about Mom." We don't think she's fully aware of what's going on. It's not safe for her to be moved around like this. Mom again, a new post. Heavily veiled, but insidious. Elderly individuals deserve safety and familiarity. It's heartbreaking when they're taken without clarity. We pray for peace and understanding. I stared at it. They were trying to paint me as someone who'd taken advantage of an old woman. Margaret didn't flinch. She handed me her phone. "Record me," she said. I did. In her own words, she stated the date, the location, her name. She stated that she was mentally sound, had chosen to come with me, and was aware of all implications. "This isn't just a vacation," she said into the camera. "This is a refuge and I'm here because I chose to be, not because anyone tricked me." That afternoon, another bomb dropped, this time from Mom herself. A new Facebook post. "We owe our son an apology. We didn't think through what we were asking. We crossed a line. We tried to make up for it with explanations instead of accountability. We're sorry." I stared at the screen. At first, I felt a pang of something. Hope maybe. Then, Margaret, seated across from me on the balcony, sipped her tea and said quietly, "I called her, told her I had a medical evaluation scheduled, told her everything I remember. She's not apologizing out of guilt, sweetheart. She's apologizing because she doesn't want a subpoena." I nodded. The timing made sense. The tone was familiar, measured, strategic. The kind of apology that tastes like ash when you say it out loud. The next morning, I got another email from my father. "Despite your mother's words, you need to reflect. You won't be welcome at any family gatherings moving forward. We hope you find peace." And that's when it clicked. They weren't sorry. They were scared. They weren't reconciling. They were containing. So I made my decision. I called Jules. "I'm done reasoning. They're playing chess with people's lives. I'm not moving pawns anymore. What are you going to do?" "I'm getting a lawyer." She was silent for a beat, then softly, "Good." As I booked my return flight to Asheville, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt clean. For the first time in years, I wasn't reacting to their story. I was writing mine. I landed back in Asheville just after noon. The cold, sharper than I remembered. It wasn't just the weather, it was the shift. The city didn't feel like home. It felt like a crime scene waiting for a headline. I didn't go to my apartment. I went straight to the lawyer's office. David Linwood was calm, surgical. He didn't waste time with pity. I handed him the manila envelope Margaret had given me. Evaluations, revised will, photos, timestamps. He didn't flinch, just nodded once, then asked for access to my phone. "Forensics will mirror it," he said. "We don't post anything else. We don't talk to them directly. From now on, everything goes through me." Finally, someone on my side who spoke their language. Back at the hotel, I found myself replaying the voicemail I'd ignored the night before. It was from Madison. "Hey, it's me. I know you probably hate me right now, but Nathan's getting serious. He mentioned lawyers, too. He says you're exploiting your grandmother and that you've stolen legal control. I don't know what's true anymore, but I just thought you should know what he's planning." I stared at the wall. The gall, the sheer audacity of trying to flip the narrative after leaving a sick woman alone with a sticky note and a half-stocked fridge. But that's when it hit me. Of course, they were doubling down. They had to, because if what I held was true, they didn't just look bad. They looked criminal. I checked my email. The lab report had come in. Margaret's cognitive assessment, dated, signed, confirmed, no signs of dementia, fully competent. And right under that, a scanned copy of a medical form from 3 months ago, one I'd never seen. It was a record of bruising on her left arm logged by her physical therapist. Patient noted mild pain, said it was from being grabbed too hard. Suddenly, it wasn't just about abandonment, it was about force and neglect and silence. I called David. "You need to report that to Adult Protective Services," he said flatly, "today." I knew he was right. But before I could respond, another call buzzed in. "Mom." I froze. Let it ring. Then again. Then again. On the 5th ring, something in me cracked. I picked up. Her voice was composed, too composed. "Emily," she began. "You don't have to do this." I didn't answer. "We all said things we didn't mean," she continued. "But dragging this into legal territory. Do you know how that makes us look?" "I'm not dragging," I said. "I'm documenting." There was a pause. Then she dropped her tone into something colder. "You think you've won because of a few signatures and photos. You're hurting your father. You're dividing this family." I almost laughed. "You divided this family when you turned a sick woman into a pawn." Silence again. Then the line went dead. I exhaled, heart pounding. That night, I filed the official report. I attached the bruising form, the note on the fridge, the emergency contact sheet written like a script. I listed every missed call, every voicemail, every threat. David would handle the next steps. But deep down, I knew this wasn't just going to be court documents and quiet settlements. They were going to come after me in ways paper couldn't catch, and I had to be ready. Sometimes, after a story like this, what stays with us isn't the shock or the conflict, but the quiet question it leaves behind. How many people are carrying responsibilities they never agreed to simply because they were the closest, the kindest, the easiest to rely on? When we listen closely, we realize this isn't just one family story. It's about boundaries, dignity, and the fragile line between care and control. And maybe it's also about how compassion doesn't have to mean losing yourself in the process. As we sit with this together, I think what matters most is not deciding who is right or wrong, but noticing how easily love can turn into obligation when no one stops to ask, "Are you okay?" We don't all get the chance to rewrite our family roles. But we do get moments, small trembling moments, where we choose honesty over silence and self-respect over habit, even when that choice costs us something. If this story stirred anything in you and if you feel like sharing Banco the Jivi Dongo Funbean Luan, not to prove a point, not to explain yourself, just to be heard. And if you'd like to stay with us, listening to more stories like this, consider subscribing. Think of it as joining a quiet community where we slow down, listen, and carry these moments together. Kamen Banjan and Jen Koi, take care of yourself and of each other. We'll meet again. Brother fired me to steal my AI. I didn't argue. I served him a cease and desist on live TV. My firm hit $2 billion valuation. His CO stock hit zero. My family warned me not to come on New Year's Eve. You will make everyone uncomfortable. So I stayed at home alone. At 12:01 a.m., my brother called, shaking. "What have you done? Dad just learned the news." When my brother's number appeared on my phone at 12:01 a.m., I waited 3 rings before answering. The champagne in my glass was inexpensive, the type you buy at CVS on December 30th, when you realize you'll be spending New Year's Eve alone. Through my Cambridge studio window, I could see other apartments lit up for parties and hear distant cheers as the new year began. "Dean." Lucas's voice cracked. In the background, glass shattered. Someone screamed. "What have you done?" Dad just saw the news and is clutching his chest. Mom is screaming. "What the hell were you doing?" I took a slow sip of my 8,999 Andre. It tasted like victory and vinegar. "Happy New Year, Lucas," I said, maintaining my voice level. I documented the truth. "You cannot." His breath came in gasps. "That Tech Insider article and the recordings." "Dean, you signed a non-disclosure agreement. You are going to prison. You will lose everything." I updated my laptop. The article received 52,000 shares in 55 seconds. Synapse Technologies goes public at a $2.3 billion valuation. The CEO of Matthews Enterprises attempted to steal my intellectual property, which was not covered by the NDA. I stated that 3 patent attorneys had verified it. It appears in paragraph 12 of the article. More screams in the background. Dad's voice. "Get him on the phone." I called Dean and hung up. My hands shook, not from fear, but from relief. From the sensation of a weight I'd carried for 30 years finally being lifted off my chest. I was not always the black sheep. I was just born as the wrong kind of Matthew. Lucas arrived first, 3 years older, 6'1" by age 16, with our father's jaw and our mother's social instincts. He could easily fit in at a country club. He wore blazers like armor and communicated in terms of quarterly projections and strategic partnerships. I came out reading. Mom tells the story of how, at the age of 7, I taught myself to code on an old desktop in my father's home office. She tells it at parties, laughing. Dean was constantly in his own little world. The subtext was clear. He was never in ours. I was accepted to Harvard at the age of 17. Full scholarship in computer science, with an emphasis on neural networks and machine learning. My parents drove up to freshman orientation in Dad's Mercedes S-Class. Dad checked his watch and commented on how impressive the campus was. Mom touched my shoulder. "You'll do well here, Dean. Just remember that grades aren't everything. Networking is also important." They departed after 45 minutes. Lucas held a lacrosse tournament. I graduated from summa cum laude 4 years later. Top of my class. My thesis on adaptive neural architectures received the departmental award. The ceremony was held on May 19, 2018, at 2 p.m. I texted them the information 4 months in advance. Mom called early on graduation day. "We feel terrible, sweetheart. Lucas celebrates his club championship today. We tried to move it, but you know how the club handles scheduling. We're very proud of my Harvard graduation." Her voice had a bright, hollow quality. "We'll celebrate when you get home. Promise." I walked across the stage alone. My roommate's parents took pictures of me. His mother cried. Following that, they took me to Legal Seafoods for dinner. I smiled at them, returned to my dorm, and stared at the wall until sunrise. It was the first time I truly understood. In Matthew's equation, I was a rounding error. After Harvard, I spent 3 years at Google's Boston office. I worked on recommendation algorithms, learned how to turn abstract math into billion-dollar products, and saved every penny I could by sleeping in a converted living room with 2 roommates while my paychecks accumulated. Lucas, meanwhile, was being prepared. Dad brought him into Matthews Enterprises, the family manufacturing company that had been producing industrial sensors since 1952. Put him on the board at 25, senior vice president at 27. Sunday dinners at the Greenwich estate became strategic planning sessions. What are your thoughts on expanding into IoT? Dad would ask while carving roast beef. Lucas would lean back, a wine glass in hand. We must consider the infrastructure costs. Perhaps start with a pilot program in automotive. Dad would nod, impressed. Mom would smile at Lucas, as if he had just solved world hunger. I would sit there, invisible, eating green beans. I once made the mistake of offering input. IoT is crowded, but if you incorporate AI-driven predictive maintenance, you'll have a distinct value proposition. Lucas laughed. That is a bit advanced for our market, buddy. Actually, Dean. Mom's voice was gentle, cutting. Let your brother finish. I learned to be quiet, learn to show up, eat, and leave. I discovered I was a decoration. March, 2022. I was 26 years old and spending all of my savings on something crazy. Synapse Technologies began as a weekend project. I'd been consulting with some radiologists who were overwhelmed by diagnostic imaging, MRIs, CT scans, and X-rays. They were missing small details, early-stage cancers, subtle fractures, and human error embedded in a broken system. I wondered if you could train a neural network to see things that human eyes would miss. The first prototype in my apartment took 6 months to develop an algorithm capable of analyzing medical images with 94% accuracy, which is 12% higher than the current industry standard. I trained it on publicly available datasets, refined it, and stress-tested it. In February 2022, I had something revolutionary. Dr. Olivia Dawson, the director of radiology at Massachusetts General Hospital, tested it for me. She was 53 years old and had 30 years of diagnostic experience. She was also known for being brutally honest. This is terrifying, she said, removing her glasses during our Zoom call. I showed it 10 scans we'd reviewed last month. It caught 2 things we missed. One was a stage 1 tumor. Is it reliable, Dean? If this gets refined, this changes everything. File the patent today. I did that on March 3, 2022. Each line of code is timestamped and registered with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. The application was 147 pages long. I named it Synapse Technologies because it processed data in the same way that a thread connects fabric, revealing patterns that are invisible to the naked eye. I did not tell my family, not yet. I wanted something that was mine first. March 19. Mom called at 7:48 a.m. Dean, we need you. Her voice was tense. It is urgent. My stomach sank. Is everyone okay? We are fine. It is business. Lucas needs assistance. Matthews Enterprises is struggling. I drove down in the afternoon. The headquarters were in Stamford, in a glass and steel building that Dad had built in the 1990s. Lucas had a corner office that overlooked the harbor. He hugged me as I walked in. Politicians use their entire body, including both arms. Thank you for coming, he replied. This means everything. The conference table was covered with reports. Revenue is down 23%, and clients are leaving for overseas competitors. The company was bleeding. We need innovation, Lucas stated. Something to pivot toward. You're good at this stuff. I spent the next 3 hours explaining AI integration, fundamental concepts, and how machine learning could help them optimize sensor manufacturing, reduce defects, and predict maintenance. Can we build our own AI platform? Lucas asked. That is a different game. Requires significant capital, research, and specialized talent. However, theoretically, yes. He made a lot of notes. 2 weeks later, Lucas called. I'm going to pitch some investors tomorrow. Can you come only for technical support? The conference room held 12 people, including VCs from Boston and New York. Lucas advanced through slides from the front, dressed in a charcoal Tom Ford suit. Matthews Enterprises is pioneering AI diagnostics. My brain stutters. AI diagnostics. He was using my terminology and framework. Concepts I explained to him over coffee 3 days ago when he asked how Synapse Technologies worked. Slide 7 displayed a neural network diagram. That was mine. Simplified but mine. A woman in the back, a venture capitalist with a Patagonia vest and laser focus, looked at me. Who is this? She asked. Lucas smiled. Smooth. Perfect. That's my brother, Dean. He's been serving as a technical consultant for the research. Consultant, not creator, and not founder. Consultant. My mouth became dry. Lucas handed me a folder containing a standard NDA that protects the family business. The document had 8 pages. I scanned it. Confidentiality regarding business discussions, strategic plans, client information, and nothing concerning intellectual property transfer. I signed it because I am stupid. Because I thought blood equaled loyalty. Because I had already filed the patent 4 months prior, and nothing Lucas could do would change that. But I should have known what was coming. In June 2022, I was officially erased. Mom organized a charity gala at the Greenwich Country Club. Matthews Enterprises was the main sponsor. I arrived in my one good suit, Navy J. Crew purchased on sale. Lucas navigated the room like a conductor, handshakes, shoulder touches, and his signature laugh that said, I'm powerful but approachable. Mom introduced him to a group of donors. My son, Lucas, is the CEO of Matthews Enterprises. We're very proud. She then gestured at me. And this is Dean. He works in technology. The way she said technology made it sound like I repaired printers. A man wearing a Rolex extended his hand. What type of technology? Before I could respond, Lucas slid in. Dean is still figuring out his path. He laughed, friendly yet dismissive. Brilliant with computers, but as you know, techies aren't great with people. The group laughed, remained polite, and practiced. I stood there with a glass of wine I didn't want, dressed in a suit that didn't fit in a room full of people who looked right through me. That night, I sat in my car in the parking lot for 40 minutes before heading home. Lucas's AI initiative had become widely known by August. TechCrunch published a piece, "The legacy manufacturer is shifting its focus to artificial intelligence." Matthews Enterprises made a bold move. The article made extensive use of Lucas's quotes. "We are integrating cutting-edge machine learning into diagnostic technology. It is about saving lives through innovation." My phone rang at 11 p.m. That night. "Lucas, have you seen the press?" His voice vibrated with energy. "Okay, pretty good, right? Investors are circling." "Lucas, that is my research." There was silence then. "What exactly are you talking about?" "Synapse Technologies provides the diagnostic algorithm. That is mine. I filed the patent in March." Dean. His voice became flat. "You consulted on this project under an NDA. Matthews Enterprises owns the work. That is not how an NDA works. Do not tell me how they work." Papers rustled. "I have good lawyers, and they say that anything developed while consulting for us falls under company IP." My hands clenched around the telephone. "I never did any consulting for Synapse Technologies. I explained some fundamental AI concepts to you. That is it. That is your interpretation. This is the truth." "Dean, the truth is something we can prove, and I have you listed as a technical consultant. I have your signature on an NDA. What have you got?" I hung up. My hands were shaking. I pulled up my patent application. March 3, 2022, 4 months before I ever stepped foot inside Lucas's office. Every line of code in my personal GitHub repository is timestamped, dating back 18 months. I had everything. September brought the lawyers. Dennis Anderson is a senior partner at Hendricks & Shaw LLP. I've been practicing intellectual property law for 32 years, Harvard Law class of 1990. He wore wire-rimmed glasses and exuded the kind of calm that comes with winning cases worth hundreds of millions. We sat in his Boston office on the 40th floor, overlooking the harbor. "Mr. Steele," he explained, "was reviewing my patent application. This is as clean as IP gets. You filed before the alleged consultation. The code is timestamped in your personal repositories. The NDA you signed explicitly excludes personal projects, so I am legally protected." "Absolutely." He leaned back. "But you are dealing with family. That complicates matters." "How?" "They will claim that you created it on their time. They'll claim you used company resources when you didn't. They will make it expensive and painful." He folded his hands. "The real question is, how far are you willing to go?" I gazed out at the city. My family was most likely having Sunday dinner without me down there. "As far as it takes," I replied. October 13th, Sunday dinner at the estate. I arrived unannounced. The dining room table was set for 6. Mom, Dad, Lucas, Lucas's girlfriend Isabella, and 2 vacant seats. "Dean." Mom's smile froze. "We did not expect you. I sent a text." "Oh." She cast a glance at Dad. "We must have missed it." I sat in one of the empty chairs. The table became quiet. Dad cleared his throat. "How are things going at work, Dean?" "Good. Synapse Technologies is currently in the late stages of development. We're talking with hospital systems about trials." Lucas's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. "Synapse Technologies is my diagnostic AI platform, which I've been developing for 2 years. I thought we had discussed this." Lucas's voice was controlled and icy cold. "That technology is mine. Patented the 3rd of March 2022. It was 4 months before I spoke with you about artificial intelligence." Isabella looked at us with confusion. Mom set down her wineglass. "Dean, let's not talk business over dinner." "Why not? You talk about Lucas's business all the time." "That is different." "How?" "Because Lucas is not being difficult." Dad's voice sounded like a whip. "He's attempting to create something for this family, and you're undermining him with legal jargon." "What about legal technicalities?" "I created something, Lucas is trying to steal it." Lucas stood up. "I'm trying to save our family's business. Do you know what's at stake?" "Dean, there are 200 jobs, people's livelihoods, then save it and add your own ideas. You are sanctimonious." He caught himself. I breathed and sat back down. "You know what? Fine, keep your precious algorithm, but don't come to us when you need money or connections." Mom's voice was soft and lethal. "I believe you should leave, Dean. I haven't finished eating. You are making everyone uncomfortable." I looked around the table. Isabella refused to meet my gaze. Dad stared at his plate. Lucas appeared to want to throw me through the window. I stood and left my napkin on the table. Thank you for dinner, I said. Nobody replied. November. The exclusion became systemic. Thanksgiving. We're keeping things small this year. Mom texted. No invitation. Dad's birthday dinner. I learned about it from Lucas's Instagram story. At the tavern on the green, 12 people are laughing over steak. December 3rd. Mom's annual holiday party. The one she had been hosting for 29 years. The one I'd gone to every year of my life. I apologize, Dean, but this year's focus is on business, clients and investors only. Later on, I checked the guest list. 60 people, including Lucas's college roommate, who worked in marketing. Apparently, I was the only person who did not qualify. On December 15th, the trap closed. Lucas called an emergency board meeting. Not officially, just him, his father, and their 2 senior partners at Matthews Enterprises. He invited me by email. We need to talk. This issue can still be resolved. I drove down, despite Anderson's advice. Don't go alone, he said. Don't say anything unless you have counsel. But these were my parents and brother. I went. The conference room felt like a courtroom. Lucas sat at the head of the table, with Dad to his right and 2 board members I barely knew to his left. Lucas thanked them for coming. No hugs this time. I sat. We need the entire Synapse Technologies algorithm, Lucas stated, rather than asking. That is not going to happen. Dean. Dad's voice sounded tired and disappointed. We're trying to save this company. This business was built by your grandfather. Do you want to be the one to let it collapse? I did not create Synapse Technologies for Matthews Enterprises. It is not part of this. Lucas slid the folder across the table. This is a settlement offer. We pay $3 million to acquire Synapse Technologies. You keep 10% of the equity. Everybody wins. I did not touch the folder. Conservative estimates put Synapse Technologies' valuation at more than $530 million. That is speculative. Today, we are offering real money based on my intellectual property. Lucas's face flushed. You signed an NDA. Everything you created while consulting for us belongs to the company. The NDA does not cover personal projects. 3 lawyers have confirmed this. Do not tell me what the NDA covers. He slammed his palm onto the table. I'm trying to preserve our family's legacy, and you're behaving like a Silicon Valley vulture. Mom walked in. I had not heard the door open. Her heels clicked on the marble floor, like a countdown. Dean, she said, sitting down next to Lucas. Your brother is correct. You have a legal obligation to the family. The law states otherwise. Family does not sue family, Mom said softly. It is unseemly. Then Lucas should not have attempted to steal my work. She flinched. Actually flinched. That is a serious accusation. Dad spoke. This is the truth. Lucas leaned forwards. Be careful, Dean. Do not make this ugly. Do you think your little startup can withstand a legal battle with us? We have lawyers on retainer whose fees exceed your annual salary. Are you threatening me? I am giving you context. I took out my phone, launched the voice memo app, and hit stop. The recording showed 1 hour 43 minutes. What's that? Lucas's voice became quiet. I asked for documentation of this conversation as well as the previous 3 conversations in which you attempted to coerce me into giving up my intellectual property. Mom's face turned white. You recorded us. Massachusetts is a one-party consent state. I do not need your permission. I stood up and pocketed my phone. I am leaving now. If you want to use Synapse Technologies, create your own algorithm. Or, better yet, ask nicely rather than demanding what you believe you are owed. I walked towards the door. Lucas's voice followed me. You're making an enormous mistake. I did not turn around. No, Lucas, I'm done being invisible. The silence was immediate. No calls, no texts, not even the passive-aggressive thinking of you messages Mom usually sent. I had been excommunicated. On December 20th, I tried to call Dad. It rang 4 times before he answered. Dean, hello, Dad. I'd like to give everyone some space. His voice sounded old and tired. You refuse to assist your brother despite everything this family has given you. Given to me? My throat clenched. You didn't attend my Harvard graduation. You forgot my birthday. 3 years running. What exactly have you given me, aside from disappointment? Silence. Then, I believe you should apologize to your brother. For what? For being selfish. The line went dead. I sat on my apartment floor for an hour, simply breathing. December 22nd. Tech Insider reached out. Subject: Synapse Technologies IPO feature. We're writing a piece about tech IPOs, and your company came up. I'd love to talk about your journey and what makes Synapse Technologies unique. Olivia Carter, 39, is a journalist with 15 years of experience covering technology and finance. In 2019, she was named a Pulitzer Prize finalist for her investigation of Silicon Valley fraud. We spoke for 2 hours on Zoom. So, you created this while working for Google? She inquired about Google in my apartment. Solo founder. Is there any institutional support? No. Self-funded? She jotted down notes. That's unusual for something so sophisticated. The majority of AI startups receive early venture capital funding. I wanted to prove the concept first. Obtain real validation from medical professionals. And you received it. I pulled up Dr. Thompson's pilot study and sent her the link. Olivia, scrolling through the results, said, "This is incredible. 94% accuracy. That's amazing. It works. That is all that matters. So, what comes next?" IPO timeline. I paused. "Can I say something off the record first?" She leaned back. "Depends on what it is. My family, particularly my brother, attempted to steal the technology. He claimed it belonged to his company because I had previously explained basic AI concepts to him." Her expression became sharper. "Have you got proof? Recordings, emails, and patent documents are all timestamped." "Dean." She leaned forwards. "That is not a side story. That is the story. I do not want to destroy my family. What do you want?" I thought of Mom's voice. "You make others uncomfortable." About Lucas's smirk. "Not good with people." Dad hung up on me. "I want the truth documented," I stated. "I want people to know what actually happened. Are you willing to go on record?" "Yes. Complete transparency, names, companies, everything." My hands were shaking again, but I'd gotten this far. Everything. December 23, 28th. Olivia worked like a surgeon. She verified my patent filing with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office and interviewed Dr. Thompson and 2 other medical professionals who had tested Synapse technologies. She reviewed the NDA I had signed and had 2 different IP attorneys confirm that it did not cover my personal projects. She listened to all of the recordings. Lucas's voice threatened, "You think your little startup can survive a legal battle with us?" Mom's voice was cold. "Family does not sue family." Dad's voice was disappointed after everything this family had given you. On December 27th, she called. "I'll publish on December 31st, at midnight Eastern Time. Are you sure about this?" Through my window, I could see Christmas lights still hanging in the building across the street. Families were together. Happy. "I am sure." I warned them that it would be damaging to their reputation. "Your brother's reputation." My brother attempted to steal 2 years of my work and erase me from my own existence. I believe his reputation can handle the truth. There was silence then. "Okay. I'll send you the draft to fact check tomorrow." "This is going to be huge, Dean. Very big." "Good." December 28th. Mom called one final time. "Dean, we are finalizing our plans for New Year's Eve. Do not come. I am your son. You are being difficult. Lucas is bringing important clients. You make others uncomfortable. Your energy is heavy." "My energy?" "Yes, you're always angry. It affects everyone." I nearly laughed. "I'm angry because you deleted me. We did not erase you. We are just." She exhaled. "This is precisely what I am talking about. The victim mentality. Mom, please do not attend New Year's Eve for everyone's sake. Goodbye, Dean." She hung up. I opened my email. Subject, Tech Insider draft is approved. Olivia, everything looks great. Publish at midnight. Dean, I pressed send. December 31st at 11:47 p.m. I sat in my studio apartment, the lights turned off on my coffee table, with a laptop, a cheap bottle of champagne, and my phone. Through the window, Boston shone. Fireworks are already starting in the distance, people are celebrating. I opened Lucas's Instagram. He had posted 20 minutes ago. The photograph depicted the Greenwich estate lit up like a resort. String lights across the terrace, including a champagne tower. Mom wore a black Armani gown, Dad wears a tuxedo. Lucas is in the center, his arm around Isabella, smiling as if he owned the world. Caption, introducing 2025 with the people who matter most. Grateful, blessed. Prepare for another incredible year. Family New Year's Eve. Matthew Enterprises. There are already 113 likes. I refreshed Tech Insider. The article was staged. Ready for publication. 11:58 p.m. I poured champagne into a coffee mug. My only glass was dirty. 11:59 p.m. Somewhere 2 hours south. My family counted down without me. I raised my mug to the laptop screen. Happy New Year. I whispered. Midnight. I clicked refresh. The article has gone live. Synapse Technologies goes public for $2.3 billion. Olivia Carter, the founder of Valuation, reveals that Matthews Enterprises CEO attempted intellectual property theft. When Dean Steele filed a patent for revolutionary medical diagnostic AI in March 2022, he had no idea his own family would attempt to claim it. In an exclusive interview, the Harvard graduate describes how his brother Lucas Steele, CEO of Matthews Enterprises, allegedly tried to steal his technology and how his family excluded him when he refused to comply. The article contained 4,200 words. Every detail, recording, email, validation by Dr. Thompson, legal opinion from Dennis Anderson, timestamp on my patent filing, and audio. Olivia had embedded clips. Lucas's voice. Do you think your little startup can withstand a legal battle with us? Mother's voice. Family does not sue family. My voice is calm. Then Lucas should not have attempted to steal my work. I monitored the metrics. The first explosion occurred on Twitter, 11 shares, 47 shares, and 183 shares. Synapse Technologies began to trend. I won 200 shares, totaling 3,800 shares. Someone tagged Matthews Enterprises' official account, then again, and 100 more times. The comments section had filled up. This is disgusting. He has his own family. The recordings are damning. Lucas Steele should resign immediately. Imagine being this talented and not having your parents attend your graduation. I am sick. 1 a.m. My telephone rang. Lucas. I let it ring 3 times. Took a sip of champagne. Answered. Dean. His voice quivered. Behind him, chaos. Glass shatters. Someone screamed. What have you done? Dad just saw the news and is clutching his chest. Mom is screaming. What the hell were you doing? Happy New Year, Lucas. I documented the truth. You cannot. He was breathing rapidly. That Tech Insider article and the recordings. You signed an NDA. You are going to prison. You will lose everything. I refreshed the page. 52,000 shares in 90 seconds. The NDA did not protect my personal intellectual property. 3 patent attorneys confirmed it. It appears in paragraph 12 of the article. Dean, please. His voice crackled. Take it down. This is something we can fix. We can. More screams. Dad's voice. Get him on the phone. I called Dean and hung up. 12:03 a.m. Mom called. I didn't respond. 12:04 a.m. Dad called. I didn't respond. 12:07 a.m. Unknown number. Most likely one of their lawyers. I blocked it. 12:11 a.m. Lucas texted. Lucas, you just destroyed our family. I hope you're happy. I typed back. You excluded me from every holiday, stole my work, and told investors I was only a consultant. You destroyed us years ago. I just made it public at 12:15 a.m. My phone began buzzing with notifications, Twitter, LinkedIn, email, and messages from former Harvard classmates. Holy Dean. I just saw Dr. Dawson's Tech Insider piece. The truth had to be told. I am proud of you. From Dennis Anderson. Well played. Call me on Monday. We need to discuss the next steps. I poured some more champagne. Outside, fireworks exploded over the Charles River. Red, gold, and silver, with people cheering from the rooftops. I stood by my window, watching the city celebrate. My phone kept vibrating. The article continued to spread. At 1 a.m., it had 200,000 shares. By 2 a.m., it had reached the front page of Reddit and 3 different subreddits. By 3 a.m., TechCrunch had picked it up. Then comes The Verge. Then, Bloomberg. Matthew Enterprises. CEO accused of intellectual property theft. Family business scandal. Leaked recordings reveal an attempted technology theft. Synapse Technologies founder exposes his brother's alleged fraud. I finally went to bed around 4 a.m. My phone was still vibrating. The 1st of January 2025. Sublime for potty 2 a.m. I awoke to 8:47 missed notifications. The Tech Insider article garnered 1.2 million shares. Lucas's Wikipedia page has been updated. In December 2025, Tech Insider reported on allegations of intellectual property theft. Matthews Enterprises stock, which went public in 2019, fell 34% in pre-market trading. My email inbox was flooded. I received interview requests from CNN, NBC, and the New York Times, as well as investor inquiries and partnership offers, and one email from an unfamiliar address. Subject, from a former Matthews Enterprises employee. Mr. Steele, I worked for your family's company for 6 years before being laid off last month. I want you to know that everyone there was aware Lucas was lying about the AI development. He held meetings where he literally read from the notes you sent him, then claimed he came up with it himself. We knew but couldn't say anything. Thank you for speaking the truth. Jessica Hartman, a former senior engineer. I read it 3 times. I then called Olivia Carter. Dean, I was about to call you. Have you seen the numbers? It is everywhere. It's the most important tech story of the day, maybe in a week. How are you holding up? I looked around my studio apartment. The cheap champagne bottle, the coffee mug, and the window that offers a glimpse into the lives of others. I'm fine, I said. And for the first time in years, I truly meant it. On January 2nd, the board of Matthews Enterprises issued a statement. We take these allegations seriously and have launched an internal investigation. CEO Lucas Steele has voluntarily resigned pending the outcome of this inquiry. On January 3rd, Lucas's girlfriend, Isabella, wrote on Instagram, "Sometimes you think you know someone. I'm taking time to process, please respect my privacy." She deleted all photos of them together. On January 5th, Dad called. I answered the 4th ring. Dean. His voice was small and broken. Your mother is devastated. The club has asked us to resign from the board. Lucas has been in his apartment for 4 days. He will not see anyone. Why are you telling me this? Because you are ruining this family. I revealed the truth about what he did. That is all. You could have done this privately. Did you have to humiliate us? My hand tightened around the phone. You humiliated me for 30 years. You missed my graduation, I forgot my birthday. I told people I was figuring out my path, while you treated Lucas like royalty. You excluded me from family dinners. From Thanksgiving to Christmas, you told me I made people uncomfortable. Silence. When I needed support, you told me to apologize. When Lucas tried to steal my life's work, you took his side. I kept my voice steady. I didn't destroy this family, Dad. I just stopped letting you pretend it was fine. Dean, I have to go. I have a board meeting. I hung up. January 10th. Synapse Technologies IPO went public. Opening price, $90 per share. By market close, $135. Valuation $2.5 billion. My personal net worth on paper, $1.2 billion. I was a billionaire at 28. Without my family's help, without their connections, without their approval, I sat in the trading floor at NASDAQ, watching the numbers tick up, surrounded by my team Dr. Dawson, Dennis Anderson, 8 engineers who'd believed in Synapse Technologies when it was just an idea in my apartment. Olivia Carter was there too, covering the IPO for Tech Insider. She found me afterward. How does it feel? I thought about Lucas's Instagram post bringing in 2025 with the people who matter most. It feels, I said slowly, like I finally matter. January 15th, the lawsuit came. Matthews Enterprises versus Dean Steele. They were suing for $550 million, claiming breach of the NDA and misappropriation of company resources. Dennis Anderson called me at 11 p.m. They're desperate, hemorrhaging clients. This is a Hail Mary. Can they win? No. Your patent predates everything. The NDA is crystal clear, but they can make it expensive. Let them, I said. I have the resources now, Dean. This is your family. No, I said quietly. Family shows up to graduations. Family celebrates your success. Family doesn't try to steal your life's work and then sue you when the truth comes out. Silence. Then, okay, we go to trial. The case never made it to trial. February 3rd. Matthews Enterprises dropped the lawsuit quietly. No press release. Their lawyers released a one-sentence statement. After further review, we are withdrawing our claim. Translation: they'd realized they had no case and couldn't afford to lose publicly. March 2025. Synapse Technologies signed partnerships with 17 hospital systems across the U.S. Dr. Dawson's pilot program expanded to Mass General, Johns Hopkins, and Mayo Clinic. Our algorithm was saving lives, actually measurably saving them. The first confirmed catch: a stage 1 pancreatic tumor in a 53-year-old teacher in Baltimore, missed by 2 radiologists, found by Synapse Technologies. She sent me a handwritten note. Thank you for not giving up. I framed it, put it on my desk in our new office, 42nd floor, overlooking Boston Harbor. April, I received an email from Email Protected. Subject: Family Dinner. Dean, I know I have no right to ask this, but we'd like to see you. Just dinner. No expectations. Your mom misses you. That I read it 3 times. I then called Olivia Carter. You're writing a follow-up piece on Synapse Technologies growth, right? Yeah, for the June issue. Why can you include this? I forwarded her the email, then typed my response to Dad. I appreciate the invitation, but I spent 30 years trying to earn a seat at your table. I don't need it anymore. I've built my own table, and everyone here showed up for my graduation. I hit send, then I called Dr. Dawson. Sarah, you free for dinner Friday? I'm thinking we celebrate the Baltimore save. Absolutely. Should I bring the team? The whole team. I'm buying. Dean, you're always buying. I smiled. That's because I can afford to now. June 2025. Tech Insider published Olivia's follow-up, Synapse Technologies hits, $4B valuation, how family betrayal became the year's biggest tech success story. The article included my email exchange with Dad. Dean Steele has built more than $1 billion company. Olivia wrote, he's built proof that the people who underestimate you don't get to define you. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't destruction. It's building something so undeniable they have to watch you succeed. The article went viral again. 47 million impressions in 3 days. I didn't read the comments this time. I was too busy. September 2025. Synapse Technologies won the National Medal of Technology and Innovation. The ceremony was at the White House. The president handed me the medal personally. Your work is saving lives, Mr. Steele. The country is grateful. I shook his hand, smiled for the cameras. In the audience, Dr. Dawson, Dennis Anderson, my engineering team, Olivia Carter, friends from Harvard, my former roommates' parents, the ones who'd taken me to dinner at graduation. Not in the audience. My parents, my brother, they'd been invited. They didn't come. October 2025, I bought a house. Not in Greenwich, not in Connecticut, in Cambridge, walking distance from Harvard. 4 bedrooms because sometimes Dr. Dawson's research team crashed there during late-night coding sessions. The closing was on October 3rd. I signed the papers alone, drove over that evening, let myself in with the new keys. The house was empty, echoing, Huge compared to my studio. I stood in the living room as the sun set through the windows, painting everything gold. My phone buzzed, Lucas calling. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Hello, Dean. His voice was different, smaller. I saw the news about the medal. Congratulations. Silence. I'm sorry, he said, for everything. I was jealous, scared. You were always smarter than me and I didn't know how to handle it. I sat down on the floor. The hardwood was cold. I don't know what to say, Lucas. You don't have to say anything. I wanted you to know what I did was wrong. What we all did was wrong. Yeah, do you think? His voice crackled. Do you think we can ever fix this? I looked around my empty house, thought about the team dinner plan for Friday, the research partnership with Stanford starting Monday, the lives we were saving. I don't know, I said honestly. Right now, I'm just focused on moving forward. Okay, he sounded like he was crying. Okay, I understand. Lucas, yeah, thanks for calling. I hung up, sat in the silence of my new house. I did not cry. Didn't rage. Didn't feel much of anything except peaceful. My phone vibrated again. Not a call this time. A text, Dr. Thompson, housewarming party. When? I'll bring the team and terrible wine. Me, Saturday 6 p.m. Bring whatever you want. Just show up. Thompson, always do. That's what family does. I smiled, put the phone down, lay back on the hardwood floor of my empty house, and watched the light fade from gold to purple to dark. Outside, Cambridge hummed with life. Students walking to class. Researchers working late in labs, people building things that mattered. I'd spent 30 years being invisible to the people who were supposed to see me first. Now I was undeniable. And I'd done it by being exactly who I was, the wrong kind of Matthews, the kind who built his own table instead of begging for a chair at theirs. My phone buzzed one last time, a notification from Tech Insider. Your article is now the most shared tech story of 2025. I closed my eyes and for the first time in my life, I fell asleep without the weight of proving I was worth something because I already knew My brother registered his scam business at my place. He won't make a scene, Dad said. But I did, and federal charges were just the start. Let me know if I overreacted. I'm Ryan, a 29-year-old guy, and I was midway through debugging a mess of legacy code when I checked my apartment security camera and noticed my parents allowing themselves in. Is this a normal Wednesday afternoon? I had given them a backup key for emergencies, but my father was clutching a tape measure. I watched from my phone as he began measuring my walls, not just glancing about, but aggressively measuring. My mother was taking notes on her phone while tilting her head and squinting as if she were visualizing new furnishings. Then my younger brother Jackson strides in behind them, as if he owns the place. He smirked. This is perfect, Jackson remarked, sinking into my leather sofa and placing his feet on my coffee table. Way better than that dump I've been crashing at, and Ryan's never even here. He's always at the office. My mother nodded, continued taking notes. We'll need to move the desk out of the second bedroom, which can be Jackson's. Ryan may work from the office just like everyone else. I'm sorry. What? My father measured the doors, the hallway, and the entire 9 yards. Once Jackson's stuff is moved in, Ryan won't make a scene. He'll understand family comes first. We just need to do it while he's in San Francisco for that conference next month. I sat at my workstation, watching these people plan to take my residence in real time. I began laughing. That frigid chuckle that makes your coworkers look at you as if you've gone insane. My business colleague Daniel looked up from his monitor with a, "Should I be concerned?" face. Maybe he should be because I just witnessed my family plotting a hostile takeover of my place. And instead of being startled or upset, I felt something quite different. Relief. Because now I had them all on video. And I was going to make them regret every decision that led to this point. See, I am a software architect. I own 30% of a business that recently raised Series B investment. I make decent money. Very nice money. And 4 months ago, after my mother took my grandfather's antique Rolex from my apartment, which was the only item I had from my father's father who cared about me, I put a comprehensive security system, cameras, motion sensors, and everything. 3 weeks later, an Instagram shot revealed the Rolex on Jackson's wrist. He informed his pals that he purchased it with his company revenues. Jackson's business revenues came from whatever MLM scam he was presently failing at, while mom and a dad supported his lifestyle. I have been chronicling everything since then. Every talk, every time they picked Jackson over me, every contemptuous remark about how I should support my family while Jackson drained them. They simply gave me enough proof to bury them all. I emailed my brother, "Hey man, wanna grab dinner this weekend?" It's been too long. 3 dots emerged, faded, and reappeared again. They were undoubtedly conversing, wondering if I knew. Yeah, dude. Sounds good. Mom and Dad free too? Bring everyone. I'll cook at my house on Saturday. I had 4 days to prepare and 4 days to set the trap. And Jackson, that arrogant idiot, marched right into it, convinced he'd already won. I grew raised in Seattle, the oldest son of George and Margaret Kowalski. Dad had a profitable import business. Mom oversaw the rental properties they owned. We had money. We had a wonderful home in Bellevue. We had everything, except that my parents did not see me. I had investors who quit investing as soon as Jackson was born. I was 8 when my brother came. And I went from firstborn to forgotten suddenly. The accountable one. The one who didn't require assistance because he was extremely skilled for his age. It's funny how an 8-year-old becomes self-sufficient when no one is watching. Jackson attended basketball camp, whereas I was told sports were a waste of time. He received a brand new Audi for his 16th birthday, while I labored at Best Buy to purchase my own used vehicle. When I got into MIT, they indicated that state school might be more practical. Jackson barely finished high school, and they applauded as if he had conquered cancer. I bought him a condo near UW despite the fact that he dropped out after 1 semester. I worked hard at MIT, in tech firms, and on my own startup. I acquired this flat in downtown Seattle 3 years ago. Corner condo with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Elliott Bay and the whole flex. It was my proof that I didn't require their approval or money. I gave them the extra key because, deep down, I wanted them to be proud of me. That key was going to cost them everything. The day after witnessing them measure my furniture, Jackson contacted me. Hey bro, I need to ask you something important. I grinned at the phone. Sure. Why don't you all come over Saturday? I'll make that Korean BBQ you guys like. I spent the next 4 days planning, but not cooking. I was gathering proof, bank papers for every loan I'd given Jackson that he never paid back, and screenshots of the 7 various company projects my parents had supported for him that all failed. Bank accounts show that I paid for family dinners, trips and presents, whereas Jackson contributed nothing and took everything. However, the real job had been ongoing for months. See, Emily, Jackson's current girlfriend, contacted me over LinkedIn 12 weeks ago. The communication was professional and pleasant. She saw we shared a last name and decided to take a chance. Jackson had been using her credit cards to pay his new business venture, a cryptocurrency trading course and MLM crap. He had maxed up 3 of her credit cards, totaling $35,000, while assuring her he was putting their money in a guaranteed opportunity. The opportunity involved him purchasing bottle service at clubs and attempting to recruit others into his downline. Emily had all of the receipts, and she'd been working with me to record everything, because Jackson had also informed her that I was a trust fund child who'd never worked in my life. Meanwhile, he had informed my parents that Emily's family was affluent, and he was looking for business opportunities. All falsehoods. Emily was a nurse who worked double shifts as Jackson emptied her accounts. But the best part was that Jackson had lately started using my flat as his business address for his LLC. He used my address for company registration without asking, most likely to appear more credible to whichever targets he was now defrauding. That meant that every piece of mail, every legal document, and every indication of his questionable business practices was now linked to my property. And that was going to be helpful. Saturday arrived, and the weather was magnificent. I grilled Colby and had Benchen set the table nicely. My flat seemed tidy, professional, and successful. Everything they had attempted to remove. The folders sat in my home office, waiting. The trap had been set, and Jackson was about to discover that the brother he'd discounted his whole life was far more intelligent than he appeared. They arrived at 6. Mom brought refreshments. Dad instantly began looking at the walls he had measured 3 days previously. Jackson strolled in with a grin, already acting like he belonged here. Emily followed him. She caught my glance and offered a little nod. She was in on it. Ryan, man, this place looks great, Jackson replied, sliding into my couch just like he did on TV. You're keeping it clean for once? I asked, smiling. Special occasion. Mom went directly to the kitchen. You should really get better knives, sweetie. These are dull. I like them sharp enough to cut through nonsense, but thanks for the feedback. She blinked, unsure whether I had insulted her. We ate supper. Jackson dominated the conversation as usual, discussing his new business idea, how he was ready to blow up, and how he had investors lined up. Dad nodded along, as if he were the next Elon Musk. Mom continued replenishing his glass. Emily remained quiet. So brother, I replied, putting down my chopsticks. How's the apartment hunting going? He exchanged stares with our parents. Dad jumped in as effortlessly as always. Maybe you could help your brother out. You've got that extra bedroom collecting dust. The office, Mom explained. You could work from the company office like everyone else. Jackson needs a stable address for his business. Family helps family, Ryan. I took a leisurely drink. That's interesting because I could have sworn I saw you all in here earlier this week measuring my walls, planning where to put Jackson's stuff, without asking me, without even telling me. The stillness was amazing. Jackson's sneer wavered. Dad's jaws clenched. Mom opened her mouth. I have security cameras, I explained. Full coverage, installed them after Mom borrowed Grandpa Kowalski's Rolex from my bedroom. Remember that, brother? The Rolex you told your friends you bought with your company profits? His cheeks turned crimson. You said those were just for the front door. I lied. And I have footage of you three preparing to move Jackson in while I am at a conference. Dad, do you want to hear your precise words? I took out my phone and played the audio. Dad's voice filled my flat as clear as day. Ryan will not cause a scene. He will understand. Family comes first. We only need to do it while he's in San Francisco next month. Emily moved in her seat, and I saw wrath flash over her face. She'd been duped about so many things, and now she was seeing it all come together. Dad began to bluster. Now Ryan, you're taking this out of context. Context? You broke into my friggin' house and planned a hostile takeover. That is the context. We're your family, Mom said, her voice rising. How can you be so selfish? Your sibling needs assistance right now. He's creating something significant. I chuckled. Is it important? Jackson, what business are you in again? What about this week? Cryptocurrency education, he stated defiantly, is going to be huge. Emily murmured quietly. It's a pyramid scheme. And all eyes went to her. He maxed out 3 of my credit cards. $35,000 for what? Photos from the Bottle Service Club on Instagram. Your business opportunity does not exist. Jackson's face changed from crimson to pale. What the heck, Emily? Don't, her voice was cold. Ryan phoned me 2 months ago. We've been comparing notes. What the heck is going on? Dad inquired, perplexed. Mom gazed at them in confusion. Ryan, what is she talking about? I'm talking about your son being a fraud. Emily, would you like to show them the credit card statements? She took out a folder, as I had taught her, and spread the statements on my table. Nightclub charges, designer clothes, and costly dinners. There wasn't a single justifiable business cost in the lot. Jackson told me he was investing our money, and Emily claimed he assured me we'd be millionaires by the end of the year, but now I'm $35,000 in debt, and he's been living like a trust fund child on my credit. That's not, Jackson sputtered. I can explain. Explain what? I cut him off. Explain how you've been using my apartment as your business address without asking. Yeah, I know about it as well. You registered your LLC at my address without I obtained the public documents and contacted the firms you were permission interacting with. Kowalski Capital Ventures, LLC. That's your firm, correct? Which one are you using to trick people into buying your cryptocurrency course? He got up, knocking his chair back. You had no rights. You had no right to use my address. And do you know what else I discovered in those public records? You are under FTC investigation for misleading business practices. You are being sued by 3 distinct persons for fraud. And you've been hiding all of this by using my address so Mom and Dad wouldn't find out. Dad's face was stoned. Now Jackson, is this true? It is all crap. Ryan is just envious because what? I stood up. Because I created something real while you were conducting frauds. Because I worked hard while you lived off your parents' money. Because I paid for this home with money I earned, and you assumed you could simply take it. Mom was crying now. Ryan, please, he's your brother. He made mistakes, but his family forgives. Forgives. Right. Wait a second. I strolled to my office and returned with additional files. Let me tell you what I'm forgiving. Jackson has borrowed $65,000 from me over the last 6 years, and you two have borrowed another $40,000. Jackson is living off Emily's credit cards, using my address for his scam business, and you three were planning to illegally move him into my apartment. I dropped the folders on the table, and this is everything. Every loan, every lie, every time you chose him over me. Jackson was sweating every time you told me to be more understanding while he took advantage of everyone around him. Now that you can't prove anything, I can prove everything. Bank transfers, text messages, emails, recorded conversations, and, best of all, Emily's lawyer has filed a civil suit against you for fraud. The FTC is looking into your fraudulent business methods, and you've been using my address as your business registration without my permission, which will look really nice when the feds start inquiring about mail fraud. Dad finally found his voice, but it was wobbly. Ryan, son, I believe you are overreacting. This is still family. No, I said. Families do not break into each other's houses. A family does not spend 3 decades teaching one child that he is worthless while the other child can do nothing wrong. I approached the door and opened it. Get out. All of you, leave your keys on the table. If you contact me again or come near this apartment, I will seek a restraining order. And Jackson, Emily's lawyer, is questioning me about everything. I am going to watch you burn. Jackson clutched his jacket, his face contorted with wrath. You are going to regret this. You think you're so clever with your job and expensive abode. You've always been a smug jerk, and now everyone will know it. Better a smug jerk than a fraud living off other people's credit cards. He rushed out, followed by Emily, who hesitated at the door and glanced back at me. Thank you, she said, and I nodded. She'd get her money back. I'd make sure of it. My parents departed slowly, my mother still sobbing, and my father wearing the controlled fury mask I remembered from childhood. You're going to regret this. Your dad whispered gently. When you're alone and need family, we won't be there. Good, I responded. I've been alone all my life. I won't bother. After they went, I shut the door, turned the padlock and strolled to my window where the cityscape stretched out in front of me, lights reflecting off Elliott Bay. My apartment, my refuge. Daniel contacted me as I was shutting up the office. How'd it go? We burned every bridge. It feels amazing. Drinks tomorrow? Absolutely. I just nuked my entire family in one meal, and for the first time in my life, I felt really free. On Monday morning, I received 17 messages from my mother, each one more frantic and guilt-ridden than the one before it. After reading the first one, I blocked her phone, as well as my father's and Jackson's, and the stillness was wonderful. Emily called that afternoon. Her lawyer had filed charges, Jackson had been served and was blowing up her phone, and I encouraged her not to respond since the material spoke for itself. She thanked me again for believing her and assisting her in building the case. Most individuals wouldn't have had the guts to contact their scammer's family, but she knew I'd listen. The following week was chaotic, but in a good way. Jackson had been conducting his business from 3 distinct addresses, mine, Emily's, and a P.O. box in Tacoma. The FTC had been working on a civil complaint based on deceptive trade practices for months. However, after my paperwork and Emily's proof arrived, the DOJ initiated a criminal investigation into wire and mail fraud. On Wednesday, federal authorities executed a search warrant at his flat. The evidence they discovered, fake testimonials, stolen course materials, and records of people he had scammed, sealed the case. Daniel forwarded me the news report with the heading, Local Man Charged with Wire Fraud and Crypto Education Scheme. Jackson's mugshot looked precisely like what you would anticipate. I was stunned and startled to learn that there were consequences. Your brother? When I arrived at the workplace, Daniel questioned me. Not anymore. The greatest thing was watching Jackson's Instagram shift from flaunting lifestyle to utter radio silence. His fans began posting and asking concerns, then someone linked to the fraud accusations, and Emily put a statement about financial abuse. Jackson's $1,800 cryptocurrency masterclass, which was basically YouTube videos he had stolen and repackaged, had about 40 students who had paid him, and none of them had learned anything but how to lose money. They all started coming forward and the lawsuits began to pile up. My parents took a new strategy after that, sending my uncle, Dad's brother, to talk to me. Uncle Richard was a decent person who never played favorites and always treated me fairly. We met for coffee on Friday and he told me straight out that his father had begged him to interfere, but he'd told him he was an idiot. He'd seen them screw me up for years. I had warned them they'd lose me, but they hadn't listened. Jackson had been a pampered brat since infancy, and everyone but my parents knew it. He took out his phone and informed me that Emily had contacted him and requested him to be a witness in her lawsuit against Jackson, and he had agreed without hesitation. That youngster needed to learn consequences, and my parents needed to learn that they couldn't allow their way out of this one. He pushed a business card across the table, including the contact information for his lawyer, who was already familiar with my predicament. I accepted the card and thanked him for his assistance in obtaining restraining orders or property protection. "Don't thank me," he added, "but don't allow them get back into your life. You are better off without them." He was correct. Jackson's arraignment was scheduled for the following Monday, and Emily kept me updated along the way. Jackson arrived in a cheap suit, accompanied by a bus bench lawyer, and his parents looked sad in the gallery. The court set bond at $45,000, and Dad had to use the home as collateral. Jackson scowled at Emily throughout, as if she had engineered his collapse rather than just chronicling it. Daniel, who had been my business partner for 4 years and had never criticized my family issues, asked me what I was going to do now that my family was collapsing and Jackson was facing federal charges. We were drinking at a Capitol Hill pub that night. I told him the truth. Nothing changes. I simply keep living my life. They were never really a part of it anyhow. Then my phone rang, an unknown number. "Ryan, it's your mother. I borrowed your father's cell phone. Kindly call me. Jackson needs assistance. He might be imprisoned. You are his sole family with the means to employ a skilled lawyer. I beg you." I showed Daniel the text, and he asked what I was going to do. Jackson had no money, but my parents did. They paid $35,000 to avoid Emily's civil action from going to trial, presumably expecting it would make the federal charges seem better for sentence, but it didn't work. I erased it and blocked the number. He made his decisions. 3 weeks later, Emily's civil claim was resolved. Emily sent me a message stating she had received the money and was paying off the cards. She noted that Jackson had attempted to put everything on me during depositions, claiming I had set him up out of jealousy, but nobody believed him because I had documentation for everything. Meanwhile, my startup achieved a significant milestone. We closed a deal with a Fortune 500 company, which meant my equity was now worth serious money, like retire at 40 money. Daniel and I celebrated by upgrading our office space and hiring 3 more developers. My life was objectively better without my family in it. After 6 months I built a life most people only dream about, and my apartment remained mine. I'd started dating Olivia, an Amazon product manager who hailed from a healthy home and couldn't understand the dynamics I'd grown up with. She fit into my life simply and organically, like partnerships should. Jackson's trial was scheduled for November, and the FTC accused him of wire fraud, deceptive business practices, and identity theft. Jackson's defense attorney attempted to negotiate a plea agreement, but the prosecutor was uninterested. They wanted to set an example. Jackson was living with my parents in their house, which they'd had to remortgage to pay for his legal fees and Emily's settlement. Dad's business had suffered, and Mom had to sell 2 of her rental properties. I didn't care about their situation. They'd made their decisions. Then, between code reviews on Wednesday afternoon, I received an email with the subject line, "We need to talk," and no sender name, but I recognized the sender and opened it nonetheless. "Ryan, it's your father. I am using a corporate email because you have blacklisted our phone numbers. I realize you don't want to hear from us, but I need you to know what you've done to this family." Jackson faces a jail sentence of 3 to 5 years. His lawyer claims that the only way to avoid it is to pay reparations to everyone he defrauded, which amounts to approximately $190,000. We don't have that much money anymore. We had to mortgage our home, sell assets, and deplete our retirement savings. Your mother's health is deteriorating. People in our community have stopped talking to us. Do you understand how it feels to be treated like criminals because of your own son? Ryan, I raised you better than this. I taught you to stand by your family no matter what. Where has that youngster gone? Your brother committed blunders. Yes, but he has paid for them 100 times over. He's attempting to rebuild his life and find genuine job, but no one will hire him with pending federal accusations. He's alone and suffering, and all he gets is criticism. Your uncle advises me to accept that you are no longer among us and have changed. But I can't believe that since honestly, I'm not going to read the entire newspaper he sent. Anyway, he closed with, "Please call me. Let's get this fixed before it's too late." I read it again and recognized the manipulative patterns. The old Ryan, who had spent years trying to win bits of acceptance, would have felt crushing remorse. But the present Ryan saw it for what it was. I forwarded it to Uncle Richard with one sentence. "They're still at it." He answered within minutes. "Don't engage. They're desperate. Your brother is undoubtedly going to prison, and they are searching for someone to blame." I did not answer to my father's email because doing so would just confirm that this strategy worked. The second email arrived a week later, this time directly from Jackson. "Ryan, I know Dad wrote you. I understand you disregarded him, not surprised. Ignoring those in need is one of your specialties, right? You sit in your luxurious apartment, appearing to be superior to everyone else. Meanwhile, your family is breaking apart. Do you know how my life is right now? I can't obtain a job. I cannot leave the state. I'm trapped living with my parents as if I were 16 again. You are the reason why everyone in town knows about my business." Emily received her money back. The FTC is pleased. Everyone got what they desired, except me. And you? You have everything. Money, success, independence, and a lover who may be unaware of your true personality. You ended the life I could have had. You ruined my business. You turned everybody against me. You ended my romance. And for what? Because you were envious because Mom and Dad loved me more. I know you believe you're really clever. Okay, congrats, brother. You won. But here's the deal. One day you'll be in that apartment, which you defend like Fort Knox. And you'll learn that no amount of achievement is worth anything without family. You chose vengeance over loyalty. You chose money over blood. I hope it was worthwhile. By the way, I know your routines. I know everything about your idyllic little existence. Don't believe you're untouchable just because you have money and cameras. Karma is a beach, big brother." I read the last paragraph twice, and it was a threat. I forwarded both emails to the lawyer for review, and he called me within an hour. The threat in the second email gives us what we need, and when combined with their documented trespassing 4 months ago and this escalating pattern, we can file for a restraining order, but we must document everything going forward because courts like patterns. How quickly can we move? I will file tomorrow. With the explicit threat and your documentation, we should get a temporary order within 72 hours and a full hearing in 2 weeks. I began keeping a detailed log of everything, every email, every blocked call, every social media interaction, to build an airtight case. 3 days later, the temporary restraining order came through. Jackson was ordered to stay at least 500 feet away from my home and workplace, and to stop all direct or indirect contact. The full hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks later, but the temporary order was enforceable immediately. Violation resulted in arrest and criminal contempt charges. My mother attempted one last email through her work account, claiming I was tearing the family apart for nothing. Richard's lawyer responded, stating that any future contact would result in harassment charges and evidence submitted at the restraining order court. The complete restraining order hearing took place 2 weeks later, and Jackson did not attend, most likely on the advice of his federal defense counsel. The judge made the order permanent based on the documented threats, the trespassing attempt, and the pattern of harassment. Violations resulted in immediate arrest. I updated building security with the court order and Jackson's photo, and Andrew, the head of security, flagged it in their system with instructions to call police immediately if he showed up. After 3 weeks, my mother wrote a last email, this time from her work account. "Ryan, you are making a tremendous mistake. Getting a restraining order against your own brother for what? An email. You are pulling this family apart for no reason. We have lost everything. Your father may have to declare bankruptcy, and you are concerned about an email. Jackson has suffered enough. You have already wrecked his life. Isn't this enough? I am your mommy. I gave birth to you. I raised you. Doesn't this signify anything?" Uncle Richard's lawyer responded, making it plain that any additional contact will result in harassment charges. We never heard from them again through official means, but my brother wasn't done. 3 weeks after the restraining order was made permanent, Daniel contacted me late at work. "Dude, you need to get home like right now." "What's wrong?" "Jackson is at your building. When security couldn't contact you, they phoned me instead. He's in the lobby, wanting to see you." "I am on my way." I made it to my building in 15 minutes, speeding the entire way, and when I got into the garage, I contacted building security. "Mr. Kowalski, he's still here," said Andrew, the night security guard. "He arrived about 40 minutes ago, stating there was a family issue. We informed him you were not here and he wasn't on the approved list, but he refused to go. He says he'll wait all night if necessary. Call the cops. He is not permitted to be within 500 feet of this structure." "Already finished. They are on their way. I simply wanted you to know before you showed up." I am in the garage. I'll stay here until he leaves. Through the phone I could hear Jackson's voice in the background. Come on, dude. I only need 5 minutes with my brother. There has been an accident. This is an emergency. Andrew replied calmly and professionally. Sir, I confirmed with Mr. Kowalski personally. There is no emergency. You are breaching a restraining order by being here. The police are on their way. This is he. He is my brother. He cannot just cut me off like this. Sir, you need to leave the premises immediately or you'll be arrested. Let him arrest me then. At least I'll be able to see his face when they bring me out. He thinks he's untouchable up in his tower. I waited in my car and listened. Part of me wanted to walk up there and confront him, but I knew that was precisely what he wanted. There was a scene, and the cops arrived 8 minutes later. Through the phone, I heard them try to reason with him, and I heard him shift tactics from aggression to playing the victim. He fed them a story about trying to fix his family, about me turning everyone against him, about just wanting to talk, but the officers didn't buy it. They told him he was trespassing, that I'd confirmed there was no emergency, and that he needed to leave or face arrest. His voice changed again, this time filled with hate. Fine. Tell Ryan that his little tech bro existence will not endure forever. Tell him that people who burn bridges often end up alone. Tell him I am not done. Footsteps, voices, and then Andrew came back on the line to say he was gone. Officers had walked him to his car and watched him go. They were filing an incident report and Andrew urged I take extra precautions since the person appeared unstable. He was correct. I stayed in my car for another 20 minutes before going upstairs, locking my door and standing in my living room, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Fear, not of Jackson, but of what he may do. He was desperate, and desperate people do dumb things. Olivia arrived almost an hour later. I had contacted her about what occurred, and she drove straight from her house. Are you okay? She asked, throwing her arms around me. Yeah, I was just irritated off. That's acceptable. She moved back to look at me. What are you planning to do? Lawyers filing a violation report. We didn't talk much that night, but having someone there, someone who chose to be there without obligation or manipulation, reminded me of why cutting off my family was the right decision. Jackson might go to jail just for showing up here, and then he won't be able to come back. The violation report was filed the next morning. Jackson's bail was revoked, and he was taken into custody pending his fraud trial. Uncle Richard called me that afternoon with an update. My mother had called him crying, asking if he could talk to me about Jackson's legal situation now that he was in custody. He'd told her Jackson had violated a court order, and he'd been warned several times. She didn't take it well. He also mentioned Jackson's defense attorney was scrambling for a plea deal. The restraining order violation, on top of the federal charges, killed any sympathy angle they might have had. Jackson's federal case moved quickly after that. His attorney negotiated a plea of guilty to wire fraud and mail fraud in exchange for 18 months in federal prison and 5 years of supervised release with full restitution to victims, which the prosecutor accepted. My parents would spend years paying off his debts while he served his sentence, and I would spend that time living my life completely free of them. After 15 months, Jackson was released. Federal inmates typically serve about 85% of their sentence with good behavior, so the timeline tracked. Uncle Richard informed me a week before his release date. He has been inquiring about you. Apparently attended a rehabilitation program in jail. He says he wants to make apologies. Amends? I laughed. That's extravagant. I am simply telling you what I heard. Do with it what you will. I did nothing with it. I just ignored it. My life had become precisely what I want, and the business was lucrative. Olivia and I had moved in together, and I'd totally recreated my social network with the appropriate people. Then Jackson showed up at my workplace, and Daniel entered my desk looking uneasy. Your brother is in the lobby. Security stopped him, but he wants to talk to you. I looked at the clock. 2:40 p.m. Tell security I'll come down, but I won't allow him up here. Let us get this over with. I rode the elevator down to the lobby, where he was standing by the windows, as if jail had hollowed him out. When he spotted me, he said, "Ryan, thank you for coming down. You've got 5 minutes." He surveyed the foyer. "Nice place." Daniel commented, "You guys are doing great." 4 minutes. He took a breath and began his apologies. He said he understood he had fouled things up and wanted to apologize, but I cut him off after about 90 seconds. "Nah," I said. You're sad you were caught. Not because of what you did. His expression hardened. But jail transformed me. I had learned and grown. I reminded him that prison did not change him. It only eliminated his access to victims. He pushed back. You are being unjust. I'm trying to make amends here. Don't, I replied, going closer. You're attempting to use me again. I can't be fooled anymore, brother. His mask almost fell for a brief moment, and he caught himself. I should have known you'd be like this, the man remarked. Richard warns me. You said you would never forgive me. He's a smart man, I remarked. That's when the real Jackson came out. With the same diatribe about how I believed I was better than everyone, how my parents were broke, how he couldn't find work, how Emily stole everything, and how I looked down on them all like garbage. You know the difference between me and you, brother, I remarked as he ran out of steam. I learned from my failures. When you fail, you blame everybody else. He tried the familial responsibility argument, asking if I was going to hate him forever and never give him another chance. I'm not going to think about you at all, I told you. That's the point you're missing. You're just some guy I used to know who kept making bad decisions. You cannot say that. I am your brother. No, you are someone who carries my DNA. And here's what happens next. You're going to leave, never contact me again, never visit my workplace or residence, and never reach out via anybody else. You got out of jail. Good for you. Now go establish your life somewhere distant from me. I mean, if I don't, you will keep making the same mistakes. But you keep away from me while you do it because I'll make sure you always face the repercussions. He attempted to call me out. When I said that his probation officer could be extremely interested in hearing about him bothering the sibling he was ordered not to see, his expression altered dramatically. He clutched his jacket, his face contorted in fury. You are a cold jerk. Do you know that? Yes, I know that. We aren't done, Ryan. One day you'll need us, but we won't be there. Promise. He gazed at me for a long time. Screw you, he eventually muttered. Right back at you, little brother. He turned and walked out. I saw him cross the street, get into a beat-up automobile, and drive away. I went back upstairs, where Daniel was waiting at my desk. Do you think he will try again? Nope, he knows I'll arrest him. He's not stupid enough to return to prison. Daniel nodded. Good, because we have that investor meeting in an hour, and I need you focused. I will be. I hung up and glanced around. This was my life now, built from the ground up and secured by limits I'd learnt to set. My brother would most likely try again, either through my parents, a common acquaintance, or a desperate email or phone call years later, and I would ignore, block or delete it because I had learned the most crucial lesson. Some individuals will take all you have and yet feel they deserve more. The only way to defend yourself is to entirely block them off, build a life they can't access and thrive in regions they can't enter. That was the only manner of retaliating that counted. My family called me a holiday parasite in the group chat. I sent them $60,000 in receipts, canceled everything and said, Merry Christmas, I'm done. At 3:12 a.m., a notice appeared on my phone's screen. I was lying in bed, unable to fall asleep after another exhausting 12-hour shift at the hospital. My hand hovered over the screen, peering at an unfamiliar group conversation. Someone had unintentionally added me to Family Reality Check rather than removing me from it. The first message I saw made my blood run cold. Thank goodness, she's covering the turkey again this year. I wasn't about to spend $150 on that. My sister-in-law Sarah, correct? She's yearning to be included. She will pay for anything. It's quite sad. My brother David. Holiday parasite hits again. Christmas tree emoji. Money with wings emoji. My cousin Olivia. I scrolled up with trembling hands. The discussion has been active for 3 years. My family spent 3 years laughing at how I paid for their vacations while mocking me behind my back. There were images of my Venmo payments with sobbing and smiling emoticons. There were jokes about my nurse income and how I was too naive to recognize I was being used. My mother had given me a present of someone tossing money into a fire with the inscription, Lily's Christmas Spirit. LOL. Lily, that's me. This appears to be the family ATM. My throat clenched as I read each message. They organized a betting pool on what I would pay for next. My aunt won $40 when I offered to pay for our family's hotel accommodations on our trip to Colorado last year. $40. They had practically gained from my kindness twice. I sat in the darkness of my studio apartment, which I could barely afford because I'd been sending money home for every holiday, birthday, and emergency my family could think of. The flat I had decorated with used furniture since I had recently paid my mother $2,500 for her medical costs, which I later discovered when reading through these texts had really funded her trip with her lover. Should we tell her about our plans to spend Christmas at the cabin this year? If we claim Mom's heart can't withstand the burden of hosting, she'll completely cover the rental fee. Genius. Lily is such a people pleaser. Simply mention Mom's health and she will open her pocketbook like a railroad seal. The messages blurred as tears flowed down my cheeks. Train the seal vacation parasite. Too foolish to realize. I had been a nurse for 7 years, working long hours, doing additional shifts, and foregoing vacations. I convinced myself I was assisting my family since I was responsible and had a secure profession. My mother used to present me to her friends as my daughter, the nurse, with much pride in her voice. I assumed she was proud of me. It turned out she was merely pleased of my direct deposits. The worst message came from my younger sister, Chloe, whom I assisted in completing her undergraduate education. I'd pay for her textbooks, food plan, and even her sorority dues if she complained about feeling left out. Lily is working another holiday shift this year. More money for us. Maybe I'll finally get that Gucci bag I want since she's covering Christmas dinner and the gifts for Mom and Dad. You're a demon, Alamu. But honestly, she makes it too simple. She offers to pay. That is on her. I volunteered because every time I returned home, someone casually mentioned how difficult things were financially. How Dad's vehicle needs repairs. How David could not afford Christmas presents for his children. Grandma's medicine was very pricey. I felt bad for having a consistent salary while others appeared to struggle. But David had shared Instagram posts from his weekend vacation to Vegas 3 days after I handed him $750 for his children's Christmas presents. Sarah wore a new designer handbag in each photograph. Chloe's apartment was full with pricey furnishings and decorations. They were not striving. They were wasting my money as I ate ramen and worked additional shifts. I continued browsing through the chat history. Every message is a fresh wound. There were discussions about my weight, my dating life, and my mundane employment experiences. Olivia had written lines about how I showed up to her wedding wearing a Target dress while everyone else wore luxury brands. What do you expect from someone who spends all of her money on others? Lal had said, the cognitive dissonance was staggering. They ridiculed me for not spending money on myself while also taking advantage of that fact. I discovered notes from last Easter when I had sent Mom $1,200 for the family supper. She informed me she was entertaining 20 people and needed help footing the fees. The conversation conveyed a different story. Only 8 people are coming, but Lily does not need to know that the additional money will pay my Botox session. Lawo. My hands were so shaky that I almost dropped my phone. My mother used the money I earned from 12-hour stints washing up body wastes and holding dying patients' hands to inject chemicals into her face. Then she shared pictures with the remark, "Blessed and grateful for family." There was a whole thread about my last birthday. I turned 32 and spent it alone in my apartment with a grocery store cupcake because I had been working 2 shifts. I'd shared a single Instagram snapshot of the cupcake with a candle titled, "Another Year Wiser." The family discussion had exploded. Have you seen Lily's sad birthday post? So pitiful. Maybe if she wasn't always working, she'd have more pals. She works full-time so she can send us money. It is currently referred to as priorities. Sarah gave a gift of someone weeping into a cupcake. There are 15 laugh reactions. I had worked that extra shift because David had called to complain about his electricity being turned off. He urgently needed $400. I took on the extra shift, paid him the money, and spent my birthday weary and alone. His electricity had never been turned off. 2 days after my birthday, he wrote about his new gaming PC. Everything is top-notch. Easily $1,800 in equipment. The pattern appeared everywhere. When I started researching, I discovered that every emergency that had taken me away from my own life, even my own wants, had been invented or exaggerated. The situation would be conveyed with tears and despair. I'd transfer money, and within days, there'd be social media posts detailing where my salary had gone. My aunt's faulty heater from January had really been operating well. She had hoped to go on a trip to Miami. My money had paid for her flights and lodging, and she informed me she was wrapped in blankets until the repairmen could arrive. I discovered a note from my mother to the group sent 2 Christmases ago. Lily just asked if she may bring someone to Christmas dinner. A guy from her hospital. I told her we didn't have any space. Haha. We can't have her sidetracked from her duty as family ATM by a boyfriend. I had been seeing James, a respiratory therapist, for 3 months. I was delighted to present him to my family. When my mother indicated there wasn't enough space, I believed her and apologized for imposing. James and I had broken up 2 months later. He had stated, "I prioritized my family over our relationship, that I was never available because I was always working extra shifts to send money home." He was correct, and my family had organized it. There were more notes regarding other partners and friends who I attempted to bring around. My family had purposefully separated me, keeping me alone and loyal to them. The more lonely I felt, the more I looked to them for companionship. The more I turned to them, the more money came their way. It was psychological warfare masquerading as family. I found betting pools based on my life decisions. When will I get a new car? I was still driving a 15-year-old Honda because whenever I saved enough for a down payment, someone had an emergency. Will I ever leave my sad little apartment? What is the best justification for getting money for the forthcoming spring break? They had weaponized my sympathy. Every positive trait I possessed had been recognized, evaluated, and utilized for profit. The conversation was still live. Someone had just sent a message. Is Lily attending Christmas this year? I need to know if we should bother cooking or if she would just pay for catering like last year. Oh, she will arrive. Where else might she go? She lives solely for work, and as our own Santa Claus. My hands stopped shaking. Something cold and harsh settled in my chest, replacing the pain with unmistakable rage. They assumed I had no life. They assumed I was so thirsty for their acceptance that I would keep paying their lifestyle indefinitely. I opened my laptop and began working. First, I logged into every payment app, subscription, and account associated with my family. I used the same Hulu account as everyone else. Netflix is mine. I paid for my mother's boyfriend's Costco membership, which he utilized every weekend. The mobile phone plan for David, Sarah, Chloe, and my parents. All in my name, paid for with my account. I had been covering 6 phone lines for 3 years. Phone costs alone totaled more than $3,500. My nibbles were made possible by my Disney Plus subscription, the Spotify family plan, the Amazon Prime membership that granted everyone free delivery, iCloud storage for my mother's 10,000 photographs. All mine. Then there were direct payments. I maintained detailed records because I had filed everything for tax purposes, hoping that some of it would qualify as dependent care or gifts that I could document. $10,500 for last year's Christmas. I had paid for the cabin rental, all of the food, gifts, and decorations, as well as the gas money for everyone's trip to the mountains. Thanksgiving cost $7,500 over the last 3 years combined. $12,500 in unpaid emergency loans, automobile issues, medical expenditures, and rent help were all meticulously noted in my spreadsheet. $5,500 for Chloe's schooling, and $3,000 for David's children's birthdays and gifts. The list continued on and on. Over the last 5 years, I've given my family slightly over $60,000. The meltdown made me feel queasy. $10,500 for last year's Christmas alone. Thanksgiving costs $7,500 over 3 years. $12,500 in emergency loans were never returned. $5,500 for Chloe's schooling. $3,000 for David's children's parties and gifts. Phone costs totaled $3,800 over a 3-year period. $6,500 for streaming services and subscriptions. $5,000 for insurance premiums and warranties. $3,700 in medical crises that were actually vacations. Over the course of 2 years, Mom's subscription boxes cost $2,800. Sarah's meal kit service cost $2,500. $1,000 for various crisis payments. $60,000. I could have purchased a house. I could have repaid my student loans. I could have traveled, invested, and established a life for myself. Instead, I paid for their trips, luxury, and comfort, while they referred to me as a parasite in group chat. The irony was not lost on me. I was the parasite, supporting their existence with my money while they drained me dry. I captured screenshots of everything. Every communication in that group chat, every payment receipt, every text in which they requested money and promised to repay me. Then I began canceling. But first, I needed to think strategically. After 7 years of nursing, I realized that you don't just tear out in 4 without thinking about the implications. You plan, prepare, and ensure that the patient cannot claim you for negligence. I set up a new email address that was absolutely different from everything my family knew about. Then I adjusted the contact information on every account, service, and subscription. I enabled two-factor authentication for everything, using my new email address and a Google Voice number they'd never seen. Only once every account had been secured under my sole authority did I begin disassembling. The phone plan came first. 6 lines beneath my name cost me $300 a month. I got into Verizon and looked at the use. David used an average of 47 gigabytes of bandwidth each month while watching videos. Sarah was always on social media, accumulating hours of screen time on my dime. Chloe's line revealed that she had been making international calls to her boyfriend, who was studying abroad in France. That explained the $150 in foreign fees I had been paying for 6 months. My parents' remarks were less insulting but nonetheless arrogant. Dad seldom used his phone. Mom, on the other hand, seems to have discovered TikTok and was constantly streaming video stuff. I downloaded all of the information, every bill from the previous 3 years, and every use report. Then I phoned Verizon and told that I needed to delete all secondary lines immediately. The agent attempted to encourage me to just transfer the lines to the other users. No, I said forcefully. Disconnect them. They are not permitted to transfer. But ma'am, they will lose their numbers. Good. The lines would expire in exactly 48 hours. I set a calendar reminder to check at that precise moment. Streaming services were simpler but more enjoyable. I got onto Netflix and reviewed my viewing history. 4 separate profiles, none of which are mine. David had been binge-watching true crime documentaries. Sarah preferred reality shows about wealthy housewives, which felt sadly fitting. Chloe viewed romantic comedies. Mom had found out how to watch British baking shows repeatedly. I removed all profiles but my own, updated my password and configured new security settings that would disable any device presently signed in. Then Hulu, Disney+, HBO Max, and Paramount+. I was enrolled to 7 different streaming sites, which cost me about $80 per month, but I hardly viewed any of them since I was constantly working. Each received the same therapy. Password updated, devices removed, and account protected. The Costco membership seemed intriguing. I signed into my account and saw that I could view purchase history. My mother had been shopping there twice a week. The purchases varied from basic grocery to luxury products, such as a $500 outdoor furniture set, a $250 stand mixer, cases of premium wine, and party platters for occasions to which I had never been invited. David had evidently purchased auto supplies, including a complete set of winter tires, in October. I'd been informed he couldn't afford the tires, so I paid him $400 for auto repairs. I terminated the subscription and asked for a prorated refund for the remaining months. I received a $75 refund. The iCloud storage cancellation was likely the most little, but it made me very happy. Mom had backed up her entire digital life to my 2 terabyte plan, photographs, films, and papers. I dropped to the free 5 gigabyte subscription and watched as the system instantly began notifying her that her backup had failed. She would not lose anything permanently, but she would have to find out her own cloud storage. At her age and technical ability level, she would be frustrated for weeks. I imagined her phoning David or Chloe for assistance, them understanding I'd cut them off, and the growing terror that their free ride had ended. Then followed the less noticeable but more expensive cancellations. I had been paying for David's auto insurance for the last year. He'd contacted me concerned about losing coverage, and I'd added his car to my multi-vehicle policy. That was $200 every month, which I would never see again. I phoned my insurance company and had his vehicle taken immediately. The spokesperson warned that there may be a gap in his coverage. That's his problem, I explained. I had been paying for Chloe's gym membership at a high-end fitness club. She informed me she needed it for her mental health but couldn't afford the $75 per month price. I had placed it up on auto pay and forgotten about it. I contacted the gym to cancel. No notice time was required because I was the account holder. There was more. There's so much more. I had been paying for Mom's subscription boxes. 3 distinct ones. Monthly delivery of beauty goods, food, and literature. Total monthly cost. $120. It's all canceled. Sarah had grumbled about not having time to food shop with the kids, so I had been covering her membership to a meal kit service. That was $220 per month for pre-portioned food brought to her door, while I ate frozen dinners between shifts. Cancelled. Dad's roadside assistance package. I purchased an extended warranty for David's television, and Chloe subscribed to a meditation program that allegedly costs $85 per year. Every automated payment, recurring fee, and service I had set up and then forgotten about. I combed through 17 months' worth of credit card accounts and discovered 43 distinct recurring expenditures related to my family. Some were tiny, $4 per month subscriptions. Others were large, such as the $180 monthly donation I was paying to what I assumed was Grandma's care fund. The group conversation had informed me about that specific strategy. Grandma was fine. She resided in a subsidized senior community with complete medical coverage. David had the notion to set up the care fund to pay for his yacht. He did not even let Grandma use the boat. There were texts about her requesting to go out on the lake and him giving excuses. By 7 a.m., I had canceled or moved 43 services and subscriptions. My monthly costs have suddenly decreased by $1,600. Annually, I spent more than $18,000 on services for people who dubbed me a parasite. The arithmetic was so ludicrous that I began laughing, weeping, then laughing again until I couldn't breathe properly. I wrote an email to my landlord indicating that I would not be renewing my lease once it ended in 3 months. I'd been doing month to month anyhow. Then I started looking at flats in Portland, 3 states away, where I had been given a position at a famous hospital the previous year. I turned it down because my family had guilted me into moving away. "Who will help us if you leave?" my mother said, crying. The job advertisement was still live. I emailed the director to indicate my newfound interest. By 5 a.m., I'd filed chargebacks on 3 loans that my relatives claimed were for medical crises, but that, based on their social media posts, had been used for entertainment and luxury items. Credit card fraud is unlawful, and lying claiming a medical emergency to collect money is also fraud. I hadn't filed charges yet, but I had the material ready. The sun was rising as I wrote my message for the Family Reality Check group chat. I've included a PDF with 37 pages of receipts, bank statements, and payment records. Every penny I gave them over 5 years was categorized and dated. My request was simple. "Hi everyone. I see I was accidentally added to this chat. How convenient. Since I'm apparently a holiday parasite, I've decided to stop feeding the hosts. Attached, you'll find documentation of every payment I've made to this family over the past 5 years, totaling $60,000. Consider it my final Christmas gift. The truth about who the real parasites are. All shared services and subscriptions have been discontinued, effective immediately. The phone plan expires in 48 hours. I will not be attending Christmas this year or any subsequent years. I will not be accessible for emergency loans, holiday funds, or any other form of financial assistance. If you're not sure why, scroll up. You've spent 3 years making it quite apparent how you feel about me. I now believe you. Merry Christmas. Do not contact me again." I pushed send and immediately blacklisted all of my family members' phone numbers. Then I erased every social media account I owned. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, everything. I did not want to see their answers. I did not want their apologies or explanations. Going nuclear requires you to fully commit. No half measures, no looking back. My phone began buzzing within minutes. Unknown numbers attempted to call. I was expecting that. I turned it entirely off. Because so many nurses wanted to take time off, the hospital management gave me more holiday shifts. I'd always been the one to volunteer, telling myself it was better to work than disrupt my family's festivities. Now I realized I'd only been useful when I arrived with gifts and open wallets. I took every available shift from November 1st to January 15th, 75 days of time and a half pay, plus extra time for the real holidays. With my basic income and overtime, I was looking at around $42,000 for 2.5 months of work. I worked, I slept, I worked again. There will be no phone calls, social media, or family time. Only work. My coworkers sensed that something had changed. I've always been pleasant yet guarded, always running off to assist my family with anything. I remained for post-shift beverages. I joined the hospital book club. I went to a Thanksgiving meal at my colleague Rachel's house and met her family, who were ordinary folks who didn't consider everyone's net worth before choosing if they were worthy of kindness. The weeks between my epiphany and Thanksgiving seemed odd. I lived in a cocoon, impervious to the realities of my past. My phone remained turned off save for work-related calls on my new number. I created a new email address and only sent important messages there. Everything from my prior accounts disappeared into a dark hole that I never checked. At work, I felt sharper than I have in years. Without the continual mental strain of dealing with my family's created emergencies, I had more cognitive space for my actual job. I identified a drug mistake before it reached a patient. I discovered a shift in a patient's health that the resident had overlooked, perhaps averting a stroke. Linda took me aside after that one. "Whatever's changed with you," she said. "Keep doing it. You've always been good, but lately you've been exceptional." I didn't tell her that extraordinary just meant no longer being steadily stripped of resources and will to live. The first major test came 3 weeks in. I was refilling supplies in the intensive care unit when I heard my name called. Not Lily Green. Nobody at work was aware of the name change yet. My prior identity was Lily Morrison. I turned to see Chloe standing at the unit's doorway, looking little and afraid. "You can't be here," I said quickly. "This is a restricted area. Family consultation rooms are on the second floor." "Lily, please. I just need 5 minutes." I quietly called out to security. "There is an unauthorized individual in the intensive care unit." Chloe's eyes widened. "Lily, come on. I drove 4 hours." Within seconds, a security guard emerged. Our ICU followed strict protocols for a purpose. "This person isn't authorized to be here," I informed him. "Please escort her out of the hospital." "Lily, I'm your sister." Chloe's voice trembled. "You can't just—" "I don't have a sister," I said, keeping her gaze squarely. "I'm an only child. Please remove her." Chloe sobbed as security escorted her away. I didn't feel anything. No guilt, no grief, and no pity. She had called me foolish while squandering the education money I had fought so hard to get. She giggled at the fact that I was a trained SEAL. 5 minutes of crying did not repair 3 years of torment. Linda spotted me in the supply closet 10 minutes later, holding an inventory clipboard and counting 4 bags mechanically. "Want to talk about it?" she inquired. "Nothing to talk about," I said. "Someone trying to access a restricted area. Security handled it." "Lily," she said, placing her hand on my shoulder. "That woman said she was your sister." "I don't have a sister." Linda gave me a long look. "Okay," she answered at last. "But if you ever do want to talk, my office door is always open. And for what it's worth, whatever happened, I'm proud of how you handled it. Professional, appropriate, no drama." I nodded, not trusting my own voice. After she went, I completed my inventory count, carefully documented everything and returned to my patients. Routine and structure kept me sane. Thanksgiving has come. Rachel's invitation was real, and I had accepted. I arrived with an expensive bottle of wine and a handmade sweet potato casserole, which I could not have afforded in my previous life. Rachel's home was cozy and chaotic in the greatest way. Her husband, Mark, made dad jokes while roasting the turkey. Their 3 children rushed around, playing some complicated game with a foam sword and a lot of shrieking. Susan, Rachel's mother, was in the kitchen, teaching her youngest daughter how to prepare pie dough from scratch. "You must be Lily," Susan remarked, wiping flour from her hands on her apron. "Rachel talks about you constantly. The brilliant nurse who never complains about double shifts." "That's me," I said, feeling embarrassed. Compliments still seemed alien. "Well, we're glad you're here," Susan replied cordially. "Rachel says you're alone for the holidays." There it was, the inevitable question. I prepared for it. "My family and I aren't in contact anymore," I answered plainly. "Toxic situation. Better for everyone that I stepped away." Susan nodded knowingly. "Good for you. Too many people stay in harmful situations because of obligation. Family should make you feel loved, not used." The term used struck a different chord coming from a stranger. Validation from someone who has no stake in the game. Dinner was both noisy and excellent. Nobody cared about the cuisine, which was nice, but not remarkable. Mark's turkey was slightly dry. Rachel had oversalted the green beans, and one of the kids spilled a glass of cranberry juice. Everyone laughed it off. Susan related a tale about unintentionally serving a turkey that was frozen in the center to 20 guests. "We ordered pizza," she remarked, chuckling. "Best Thanksgiving ever because it was the year we stopped pretending everything had to be perfect." I reflected on my family's Christmases, when I'd paid for professional cuisine and extravagant decorations in order to project a successful image. Meanwhile, they were mocking me in their group chat for trying too hard. This informal, flawed dinner with near strangers was more enjoyable than any Christmas I'd spent with my biological relations. Rachel and I had a coffee break on the back patio after dinner, while the kids played board games. "Thank you for inviting me," I said. This was really nice. Thank you for coming, Rachel said. I know it probably feels weird spending holidays with coworkers. You're more than a coworker, I admitted, surprised myself with my candor. You're a friend. Maybe my only real friend. Rachel was quiet for a minute. What happened with your family, Lily? You don't have to tell me, but I've worked with you for 3 years and you've changed so much in the past month. You're lighter somehow. Like you were carrying something heavy and finally put it down. I told her, not everything, but the core of it. The group chat, the mockery, the money. Rachel listened without interrupting, her countenance swinging from amazement to fury, to grief. $60,000. She repeated when I finished. Lily, that's financial abuse. You know that, right? I hadn't thought about it that way. Abuse seems like a harsh term. Rachel kept going. They manipulated you, lied to you, isolated you, and exploited your kindness for years. That's abuse. The fact that their family doesn't make it less severe. It makes it worse. Hearing it labeled so clearly affected me. My eyes burned with tears that I refused to weep. I feel stupid, I acknowledge. Like I should have seen it sooner. Con artists target smart people, Rachel stated with determination, because smart people think they're too smart to be conned. You're not stupid. You're kind. They weaponized your kindness. That's on them, not you. Rachel's adolescent daughter complained that her phone was ancient. Rachel assured her she could get a new one if she saved up her allowance. Nobody expected someone else to fund their desires. It was such a strange thought that I nearly sobbed into my mashed potatoes. December 24th has come. I worked a 12-hour shift in the ICU. Around 3 p.m., a woman in her 60s approached the nurse's station, seeming disoriented. I'm trying to find my daughter, she stated. She's a nurse here. Lily Green. Despite the alterations, I knew her immediately. My mother appeared thinner and more drawn. Her hair was styled differently, shorter, but the desperation in her eyes was clear. I'm sorry, I said quietly. There's no one here by that name. It wasn't exactly a lie. I'd filed for a name change 2 months earlier, and while the legal procedure was still ongoing, I'd ceased identifying as Lily Morrison in every manner that counted. Please, my mom urged. I know she works here. I need to talk to her. Security came before I needed to answer. Apparently, she had been creating a disturbance in the lobby for an hour. They let her out, and she yelled my old name. I completed my shift with firm hands. On January 3rd, the Portland hospital offered me the post. Head nurse at their cardiac unit, earning $40,000 more each year than my previous position, signing bonus and relocation aid. I agreed immediately. By mid-January, my name change had become official. Lily Morrison was legally dead. My grandmother's maiden name, Lily Green, was born. Everything is fresh, including the driver's license and nursing license. I was reincarnated and have the documents to prove it. My Portland apartment was double the size of my previous studio, and located in a building with a gym and a rooftop garden. I purchased new furniture, actual furniture, not curb finds, and Facebook Marketplace sale stuff. I purchased paintings for my walls. I got a gray tabby cat from the local shelter and called him Phoenix. I had risen from the ashes of who I once was. My previous email account has been receiving messages for several months. I never opened them. They moved to a folder called Dead to Me that auto-archived everything, but curiosity got the best of me in March. My mother's emails were lengthy guilt trips about family obligations and how harsh I was. Sarah submitted a 2-sentence apology, blaming her actions on postpartum depression from 4 years ago. David stated that I had misread the context of the group discussion. They had been kidding. Couldn't I take a joke? Chloe's response was different, short and straightforward. You paid for my education and I called you stupid. You're the smartest person I know and I'm the idiot. I don't deserve forgiveness, but I need you to know that I'm sorry. I've started paying you back. It'll take years, but I'm putting $150 into a savings account every month in your name. I'll send you the details when I have your address. If you never want to speak to me again, I understand. But I'm sorry. Really truly sorry. I didn't react, but I also didn't delete it. The others may rot, but Chloe's note remained in my inbox, a small seed of something that could one day bloom into forgiveness. Maybe. In years from now. One email stood out from the others. My dad's. He'd never participated in the group chat. I had seen his name displayed but he rarely posted. Lily, I didn't know about the chat until you sent those screenshots. Your mother showed me her phone and I saw what they'd all said. What I'd allowed by staying silent when I should have noticed what was happening. You deserved better from all of us, but especially from me. I should have protected you. I filed for divorce last week. I'm living in an apartment now, working with a therapist to understand how I enabled this. I'm not asking for forgiveness or reconciliation. I just wanted you to know that I see what I failed to do, and I'm trying to become someone who wouldn't fail you again, even if you never let me be part of your life. I love you. I'm proud of you and I'm sorry, Dad. I read the email 3 times before closing my laptop. You sometimes burn bridges. Some bridges burn themselves. Some bridges fall as a result of years of foundation faults that you were too busy to notice. Spring arrived in Portland with cherry blossoms and showers. I dated Ryan, a teacher who believed my dedication to my job was laudable and not something to exploit. We attended cookery lessons together. He never asked me to pay for his share. Rachel asked me to join her family's Easter celebration. Her mother inquired about my family, and I told her the truth. I don't own one anymore. She hugged me and said, "You do now, honey." I grieved in her bathroom for 10 minutes before eating 3 servings of ham. My bank account has grown. I finished off my college loans in April. The entire $28,000 was spent in one payment. As I glanced at the $0 balance, I felt lighter than air. In May, I received an $850 cashier's check with a message from Chloe. First payment. Many more to come. Your new address was on the court documents for the name change public record. I am not stalking you, I promise. I just want to make this right. The case number was found in the county database. I deposited the check and acknowledged it by SMS to the number she provided. By June, my mother had located my address. I arrived home to see her waiting outside my building. Security will remove you if I call them, I added, continuing to go toward the entrance. Lily, please. That's not my name anymore. You're my daughter. For the first time in 6 months, I came to a complete stop, turned, and looked her in the eyes. She appeared older, smaller. The mother who raised me, patched my skinned knees, and fed me chocolate chip pancakes on Sundays looked like a stranger with a familiar face. Your daughter died when she realized her family saw her as a wallet with legs, I explained calmly. You have 60 seconds to leave before I call the police. She departed in 45 seconds. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt tired. That night I wrote my father a simple email. Acknowledged your message. Not ready to talk. Maybe someday. Focus on yourself. Hey, he said. That's more than I deserve. Thank you. Portland's summer was lovely. Ryan and I went for a walk on Mount Hood. I took a vacation to Greece, which had been a long-time desire of mine. I shared images on my new private Instagram account, which had only 30 followers, all of whom I'd met within the last year. No one asked me to send money. Nobody needed me for anything other than my companionship. It was the most peaceful I'd ever experienced. In August, Chloe sent a second check with a longer message. I got a promotion. Sending $450 this month. Told David and Sarah what I'm doing, and they think I'm stupid for giving you money you don't even need now. That's how I know it's the right thing to do. You deserved better. I'm trying to be better. M. I replied with the following. Proud of your promotion. Use half that money for yourself. I mean it. An hour later, she responded. Only if you promise to let me take you to dinner if you're ever back east. No agenda, just sisters eating overpriced pasta. I didn't promise, but I also didn't say no. September brought colder temperatures and a revelation. I'd completely reinvented my life in less than a year. New city, new job, new name, and new connections. Everything the old Lily had been too terrified to grasp for because she was too busy serving as everyone's safety net. The new Lily, Lily Green, was no longer terrified. I got a phoenix tattoo on my shoulder blade, rising from flames. The artist inquired about the meaning. Rebirth, I said simply. She grinned. Those are the best kind. October arrived with falling leaves and a surprise delivery. Inside was a hand-knit scarf in forest green, my favorite color, along with a message from my father. Your grandmother taught me to knit before she died. I'm not good at it yet, but I'm trying. Stay warm. No response needed. The scarf was uneven and had a few drop stitches. It was perfect. I wore it every frigid day in the fall. The message's first anniversary, as I recall, occurred on a random Tuesday. I had worked the night shift and arrived home to find another check from Chloe. She had been steady, never missing a month. My father also sent me an email with images of him at a volunteer facility feeding food to homeless veterans. Trying to be useful to people who actually need help, his email. Read, trying to be someone you could be proud of again someday. I looked at my schedule. Christmas was 8 weeks away. Ryan asked if I'd want to spend the holidays with his family in Seattle. Rachel invited me to her place again. I had alternatives now. People wanted my presents, not my gifts. I selected Rachel's. Her tenderness reminded me of how family should feel. On Christmas Eve, I worked a half shift before going to Rachel's place for supper. Her children staged a messy nativity scene, with a household dog playing a confused sheep. Her husband Mark told bad jokes. Her mother inquired about my cat and showed me images of her own 3 rescue pets. Nobody asked for money. Nobody required me to be anything other than myself. After supper, I checked my emails. Chloe sent a new message. Merry Christmas. I'm not expecting a response. Just wanted you to know I think about you every day and I'm still sorry. Still paying back. Still trying. Hope you're happy wherever you are. I replied, Merry Christmas, Em. I'm happy. Keep being better. That's enough. Her reaction was quick. You responded, best Christmas gift ever. Love you, sis. I glanced at the words. Love you, sis. A part of me wanted to respond. Part of me wasn't prepared. I wrote, talk next year. Maybe is enough. Thank you. I shut down my laptop and rejoined the party. Rachel's kid was attempting to teach the dog how to wear a Santa hat. Ryan offered me champagne and kissed my forehead. Someone began a board game, which descended into happy squabbling. This is how the holidays were supposed to be. Joy without a transaction. Love without calculation. A year ago, I was the holiday parasite, unintentionally feeding a family that regarded me as prey. Now I was just Lily, free, happy, and entire. The finest kind of vengeance I'd discovered was not devastation, it was a reconstruction. I destroyed who I was and rebuilt someone better from the ashes. And I had never looked back. Almost never. On New Year's Eve I got my father's final message. I know you're not ready. I might never be forgiven and I've accepted that. But I wanted you to know I'm divorcing your mother. I'm in therapy. I've cut off everyone who was in that chat and I'm living differently. Not for you, for me, so I can look at myself in the mirror. You deserve a father who protected you. I'm becoming that man even if it's too late. Happy New Year, sweetheart. I saved the message. Did not react. Not yet, but maybe I will in the future. Some relationships are salvageable, some cannot. The problem is determining which ones are worth the effort. As midnight came, Ryan drew me in and asked what I wanted for the new year. More of this, I murmured, indicating to the life I'd created. More peace, more joy, more people who love me for me, not for what I can give them. That's not too much to ask, he said. For the first time in my life, I actually believed him. The new year began with champagne, laughing, and hope. I had paid for everything at Christmas once. Holidays, gifts, everyone's happiness but myself. Now I had paid for my freedom. Best investment I've ever made. My parents couldn't help with my daughter's treatment but spent $480,000 on my sister's kids' tuition. When I confronted them, the truth shattered me. I never imagined I'd be the sort of person to air my family's dirty laundry on the internet, yet here I am at 3 a.m., unable to sleep and thinking only about what occurred tonight. My hands are still trembling as I type this. I need to get this out because if I don't, I believe I will lose my sanity. My name is Olivia, and my daughter Sophie died 6 years ago. She was 8 years old and had acute lymphoblastic leukemia. The aggressive sort. The kind that need intense therapy, experimental medications, and round-the-clock care, which insurance companies enjoy denying payment for. My husband Daniel and I tried all we could. We maxed up credit cards, took out loans, sold our car, and even established a GoFundMe campaign, which hardly made a dent in the exorbitant expenditures. We were drowning, seeing our little child suffer, and begged anybody who would listen for assistance. I recall calling my folks in complete desperation. Sophie had been in the hospital for 3 months, and we had recently learned that the next stage of her therapy was not entirely covered by insurance. We needed $50,000 fast. I was weeping so hard that I couldn't talk. My mother answered the phone, and I described everything with weeping. I told her about the therapy, how Sophie was so courageous yet exhausted, and how the doctors claimed it may save her life. There was a long delay at the other end of the line. Then my mother added, in her quiet, measured voice, "Olivia, you know we're on a limited income, and your father's retirement isn't what we wanted. We just do not have that amount of money to spare." I begged. I went down on my knees in that hospital corridor and begged the phone. I assured her that we would repay them in full, with interest. I assured her I would sign over everything they wanted. I would have sold my soul to the devil himself to save Sophie. But my father got on the phone and said the same thing. They apologized. They wanted to contribute, but they couldn't afford it. They advised we check into medical bankruptcy and go to a social worker at the hospital. When I hung up the phone, something inside of me cracked. Sophie needed me, so I didn't have time to digest it. Daniel and I ended up acquiring the money through a mixture of his parents putting out a second mortgage, my work giving me a year's pay advance, and a loan from a medical financing firm with an unlawful interest rate. Sophie received therapy, but it wasn't enough. 6 months later, my baby girl died in my arms while weighing less than 60 pounds. Her hair is long gone. Her gorgeous brown eyes continued to grin at me, even as life drained from them. The last thing she said was, "I love you, Mommy. Don't be sad." How do you move on from that? How do you wake up every morning knowing your child is gone? My sister Lauren has 3 children, Jake, Chloe, and Mason. All are healthy, prospering, and attend Greenwood Preparatory School, one of the most prominent private institutions in the state. Tuition there costs around $40,000 per year each child. Do the math. That's $120,000 every year. I knew Lauren and her husband Chris did well. Chris is a corporate lawyer, and Lauren runs a dentistry business. They live in a gorgeous suburban home with a pool, travel to Europe, and drive matching Tesla SUVs. I didn't envy them their success. I actually didn't. Even when Sophie died and I couldn't afford to keep the lights on due to our debt, I never resented Lauren's good fortune. We hadn't been very close growing up, but she was still my sister. She sent a floral arrangement at Sophie's funeral, one of those generic ones from the internet. She didn't stay very long at the service. They said the kids had soccer practice. For 3 years, I've been reconstructing my life. Daniel and I split 18 months after Sophie's death. Grief ended our marriage. We couldn't look at each other without noticing her absence. The divorce was peaceful, if heartbreaking. We still chat and support one another while we heal, but we can't stay married. The weight of loss was too much for us to bear together. I've been working 2 jobs to pay off our medical debt and the money we borrowed. In daytime, I can hardly see my little flat. I'm a shell of who I once was, going through the motions, existing but not living. Therapy helps, but the hole in my chest will never heal. Everyone thinks time makes things easier, but they're lying. Time simply improves your ability to pretend that everything is okay. Something happened 2 weeks ago that completely altered the situation. I was having coffee with my former college roommate, Tara, who works in administration at Greenwood Preparatory School. We hadn't seen each other in months, and she was catching me up on her life when she mentioned something in passing. "It's so wonderful that your parents are able to help Lauren with the tuition," she continued as she stirred her coffee. "I simply completed a payment from their account last week. It is really a joy when grandparents can help their grandkids with their schooling." Tara looked alarmed right away, so I must have looked like I was hit by lightning. "Olivia, are you all right?" I couldn't speak or breathe. The coffee shop began swirling around me. Tara grabbed my hand across the table asking what was wrong, if I wanted water, and if I was going to get ill. Finally, I managed to pass out. "What are you referring to?" "My parents' account." Tara understood she had shared information I wasn't authorized to know. Her face turned pale, and she began backtracking, saying she could have made a mistake. Maybe she got confused with another family. But I pressed her. I needed to know. After some hesitancy and my promise not to expose how I found out, she gave me the truth. My parents had been paying full tuition for all 3 of Lauren's children at Greenwood Preparatory School for the last 4 years. Every semester, like clockwork, a check arrived from their joint account. $120,000 each year. This amounts to $480,000 over 4 years. Let it sink in. $480,000 for private school while my daughter died because they said they couldn't afford $50,000 for her cancer treatment. I can't remember leaving the coffee shop. I do not recall driving home. I just remember sitting in my car outside my apartment complex, screaming till my throat was sore. I pounded the steering wheel till my knuckles were sore. Then I sat there in quiet, looking at nothing as the sun sank and darkness fell over the automobile. That night, I did not sleep. I reframed every contact with my parents over the last 6 years in light of this new horrible revelation. Every holiday they gave Lauren's children extravagant presents while I received a gift card. Every family event, they lauded Lauren's parenting while making subtle barbs at my decisions. Every time I phoned in despair and they claimed to be poor, they lied. While I was watching my daughter suffer, selling everything I owned, destroying my life and marriage in an attempt to rescue Sophie, they were writing checks for my sister's children to attend a school with a climbing wall and a culinary arts program. For 2 weeks, I wondered how to proceed with this knowledge. Part of me wanted to confront them right away, to phone them and shout until they grasped the gravity of their treachery. But another part of me, the part that was still their daughter despite everything, wanted to think there was an explanation, a rationale for this, even though I knew there wasn't one. During those 2 weeks, I got preoccupied with putting together the timeline. I gathered old bank statements, medical bills, and anything else that may help me figure out when my parents began financing Lauren's immaculate existence. While seeing mine fall, I made a spreadsheet because sorrow and hatred had transformed me into someone who records betrayal in Excel. My parents submitted their first tuition contribution to Greenwood Preparatory School in August, 6 years ago. I know this because I performed further research, called in favors, and perhaps broke some ethical boundaries I'm not proud of. August, 6 years ago. Sophie received her diagnosis in June of that year. By August, we were drowning in medical expenses and beginning to worry about how we would fund her therapy. That implies my parents made the deliberate decision to invest more than $120,000 per year to private school tuition within 2 months of Sophie's diagnosis. They knew she was ill. They knew we were hurting, yet they opted to write those checks nevertheless. I began experiencing panic attacks throughout those 2 weeks. I'd be stacking shelves at the grocery store where I work as a second job when I suddenly couldn't breathe. I'd have to lock myself in the bathroom, sit on the floor, and attempt to recall the breathing techniques my therapist had given me. In via the nose for 4 counts, hold for 7, and exhale through the mouth for 8. However, no breathing technique could quell the wrath that was growing inside me like a pressure cooker poised to erupt. I also began to recall things I'd shut out. Things my brain had shielded me from at the depths of my grief. For example, around 5 years ago, Lauren grumbled at a family BBQ about how costly Greenwood Preparatory School was, and my mother stroked her hand and said, "Don't worry, dear. You're doing the right thing for the children." Quality education is worth any price, my mother had commented less than a year after Sophie's diagnosis, when I was already financially distraught. Quality education is worth any cost. Or the time my father lectured me on financial responsibility, hinting that Daniel and I had been living above our means, and that our financial problems were our own fault. He was aware that Sophie was in treatment at the time, and that we were selling everything we owned. He stared me in the eyes and basically blamed us for our financial collapse, all while paying large checks to Lauren's children. Sophie's last birthday party, which took place just before she became too ill to celebrate, sprang to mind. We had it in our flat since we couldn't afford anything else. It was simply family, a baked cake, and a few gifts we'd saved money for. Lauren had arrived late, grumbled about the parking, and then departed early since Mason had a tennis lesson. My parents also paid for a membership at a country club where I took tennis lessons. I subsequently realized that my parents had handed Sophie $60. Savings bond for her birthday. $60. And I was thankful for it since $60 was $60. Meanwhile, I subsequently discovered that they had given each of Lauren's children new iPads the same month. Top-of-the-line models are $850 apiece. Sophie, however, received a savings bond that she would never be able to redeem. The memories kept coming. Each one has a fresh knife wound. Lauren quietly discussed the children's school vacations to Costa Rica and France during family dinners. Trips worth thousands of dollars. My parents had paid the trips. Lauren's children unwrapped lots of costly gifts on Christmas morning, but Sophie received only a few little items. And I was glad even for it. Every family event, my financial troubles were regarded as a dirty secret while Lauren's wealth was praised. I remembered calling my mother and weeping because we couldn't afford Sophie's anti-nausea medicine, which insurance wouldn't cover. How my mother advised that I check into patient support programs. Consider talking to a social worker. Maybe try generic alternatives. All reasonable recommendations, only she was making them when she could have just written a check to remedy the situation right now. There was one time that I couldn't quit thinking about. Sophie had lost all of her hair due to chemo, and she was sad. She was just 8, and she was really self-conscious about it. We discovered a gorgeous wig made of genuine hair online that matched her natural curls perfectly. It costs $300. We could not afford it. Sophie wore inexpensive synthetic wigs that irritated her scalp and made her weep since they did not look natural. During the little time she was able to attend school, students stared at her. I mentioned it to my mother casually during a phone chat. I wasn't even asking for money. I was simply talking about how difficult it was to watch Sophie so unhappy with her appearance, on top of everything else she was going through. My mother made sympathetic comments but said nothing further about it. The wig never arrived, but Lauren's daughter, Chloe, received a $500 American Girl doll bell set from her grandparents the same month as a reward for earning the honor roll. During the 2 weeks of discovery, I also contacted Daniel's parents, Rebecca and James. They were the ones who took out a second mortgage on their modest house to assist us pay for Sophie's care. They had never been affluent, as both retired teachers relied on pensions, but they had done everything they could. I met Rebecca for lunch and informed her about my discovery. She sat in silence for a long time after I finished speaking. Her face was expressing a variety of feelings that I couldn't decipher. Finally she continued, "Olivia, I want you to know something. When we took out the mortgage, we contacted your parents. We reasoned that if we pooled our resources, we could provide for Sophie's needs without putting an undue strain on any one family." My heart has stopped. "You called them?" "James did," she responded, her eyes welling up. "He phoned your father, described what we were doing, and asked if they could help at all. Even a few thousand would have been helpful." "Do you understand what your father said?" I couldn't talk, all I could do was shake my head. He stated they wished they could help, but they had already overextended themselves by assisting Lauren with some house repairs and couldn't take on any additional financial commitments. Rebecca stretched across the table and grabbed my hand. "Olivia, we didn't inform you since you were already carrying a lot. We did not wish to add to your load. But certainly your parents refused to assist, even when we were actually mortgaging our house. Home remodeling. They informed Daniel's parents that they couldn't help due to house renovations. I subsequently went by Lauren's house and noticed the addition they built that year. A large family area with floor-to-ceiling windows. My folks didn't simply pay for it. My father boasted about it at a family event. He expressed his delight at being able to assist his daughter in expanding her home to accommodate her increasing family. I had never felt fury like that before. It was white hot and all-consuming. I had to pull over on the way home because my hands were so shaky I couldn't steer. I contacted my therapist's emergency line and spent an hour calming her down from what she characterized as a perfectly acceptable crisis response. I also started looking at the GoFundMe page we had put up for Sophie. I hadn't looked at it in years since it was so awful, but I pushed myself to review every gift, remark and share. What struck me was how many people had done what they could. Daniel's co-workers, Sophie's schoolmates, neighbors, and even strangers had heard her story. People who evidently didn't have $7 to spare made $7 contributions. $25 here, $60 there, all accompanied by prayers and well wishes. My parents had contributed $250 to the GoFundMe. $250 with a public statement that they were praying for their granddaughter and wished they could do more. They paid $250 while writing checks for $40,000 per child every semester. The hypocrisy was astounding. But Lauren had not given anything. Not a penny. I rationalized it at the time, telling myself she was busy with her children and that she was probably assisting in ways I didn't see. But now I know the truth. She'd been too busy enjoying the money that could have saved my daughter's life to give even a little amount to her niece's cancer fund. I spent hours scrolling through the letters of support from strangers on that GoFundMe website, sobbing at the generosity of individuals who had never known Sophie. An elderly woman on a fixed income gave $60 with a message that said, "I remember when my grandson was sick. No child should suffer. Praying for your sweet girl." A youngster gave their $30 birthday money since they had read Sophie's story and wanted to assist. These strangers, with no commitment to us, had pulled together what they could as my parents sat with hundreds of thousands of dollars and said no. The wickedness was astounding. Then, yesterday, my mom texted me in the family group chat. "Sunday meal at our home. Lauren and the children will be there. We haven't been all together in a long time. Please come, Olivia. It would mean a lot to your father and I." I gazed at the writing for a long time. Then I said, "I'll be there." Daniel felt I was insane when I told him what I was planned. We met for coffee because I wanted someone to talk to, someone who knew the gravity of this betrayal because he had experienced it himself. When I described what I had learned and what I meant to do, he remained silent for a while. "Are you sure you want to do this?" he inquired, his eyes filled with the same sadness we experienced. "You cannot take these things back after they have been said." "Good," I said. "I don't want to take them back." He nodded carefully before reaching across the table and squeezing my hand. "Sophie would be proud of you for sticking up for yourself and for her." That made me cry right there in the coffee shop because he was correct. Sophie was always so bold and prepared to fight. She never gave up, even when her small body failed her. I owed it to her memory to be equally bold. So today, I traveled to my folks' home in the suburbs, the same house I grew up in with a large oak tree in the front yard and a garden that my mother is obsessed with. Lauren's Tesla was already in the driveway, alongside my parents' vehicle. I sat in my beat-up Honda for a few minutes, gathering my courage, my heart hammering so hard it seemed like it might explode out of my chest. I stepped inside without knocking. Sunday dinners were always relaxed. The family is just letting themselves in. I heard laughing coming from the dining room. I could smell my mother's pot roast. I could hear my nieces and nephew talking eagerly about something. For a brief and terrible time, I remembered Sophie as part of that noise. Her high-pitched giggle blended with her cousins' voices. When I entered the dining room, everyone looked up. My mom grinned. That was a trained, beautiful hostess grin. "Olivia, we are so delighted you could make it. We are just about to sit down." Lauren was helping to arrange the table, dressed in expensive trousers and a cashmere sweater. "Hello, Olivia, I haven't seen you in a long time." My father was already sitting at the head of the table and nodded to me. "Hello, sweetie." The kids were in the living room, absorbed to their iPads, and didn't notice my approach. I looked at them, these healthy, fortunate children, and remembered Sophie, how she'd loved to draw, how she'd wanted to be a veterinarian, and how she'd never complained even when the chemotherapy left her so sick she couldn't walk. "Let's eat," my mother replied, bringing the pot roast to the table. "Everyone sit down." I took my normal seat, which I'd used for family dinners since I was a youngster. Lauren sat across from me, with my parents at each end of the table. The children soon entered, took their places, and supper started. It was all so typical, so ordinary that I wondered if I was actually going to do it. My mother served the meal, inquiring about everyone's weeks. Lauren discussed Chloe's soccer tournament and Jake's science fair presentation. My father mentioned something about golf. They inquired how my job was doing, and I provided vague, one-word responses. The meal tasted like ash in my tongue. "Olivia, you seem silent." My mother noted in her characteristic manner of making an observation seem like a critique. "Is everything okay?" This was it. This is the moment I've been planning for. I put down my fork and stared at her squarely. "Actually, Mom, I have something I need to tell you all about." The table became silent. Lauren regarded me with mild interest. My father halted, his fork halfway to his mouth. The youngsters kept eating, unaware. "I had coffee with Tara Cooper a few weeks ago." I began with a fairly steady voice. "Do you remember Tara, my college roommate?" My mother nodded slowly, and I noticed a flash in her eyes. Fear, perhaps. Or recognition. "She now works in administration at Greenwood Preparatory School." I turned to face Lauren. "That's where your kids attend school, right? This is a very prominent place. It must cost a lot." Lauren looked at our parents and then back to me. "Yes, it is an excellent school. We're quite blessed." "Yes, you are." I agreed. "Isn't it around $40,000 per child per year? So, for 3 kids, that's more than $120,000 every year." "Olivia, what is this about?" my father inquired, his voice seeming cautionary. I ignored him, my gaze fixed on Lauren. Tara said something fascinating. She added, "Mom and Dad have been paying the tuition for all 3 kids for the past 4 years." There was a deafening quiet across the table. Lauren's face turned paler, then crimson. My mother's mouth moved like a fish. My father sat his fork down with a bang. "Olivia," my mother began. But I raised my hand. "Do you recall Sophie being sick 6 years ago? When she required care that her insurance would not cover, I phoned you, practically on my knees in a hospital corridor pleading for assistance." My voice was trembling now, but I pressed on. Do you recall what you told me? My mother's eyes were full with tears. Olivia, please. You said that you were on a fixed income. You mentioned you didn't have that much money. You advised that I look into bankruptcy. I laughed, and it sounded harsh to my own ears. I needed $50,000 to save my daughter's life. You told me you couldn't afford it, but you could afford $120,000 each year for Lauren's children to attend private school. My father's face turned crimson as he responded. It's not that simple. The scenarios were different. How are they different? I demanded. Please tell me why paying for private school is more essential than preserving your granddaughter's life. I'm eager to comprehend this rationale. Lauren discovered her voice. Olivia, I didn't know about this. I swore. I assumed my parents were only providing minor assistance. Do not lie, I snapped. You knew exactly where the money was coming from. You knew they were paying full tuition. Yet you said nothing. Even during Sophie's funeral, you said nothing. That's not fair, Lauren said. I didn't know what happened with Sophie's treatment because you never asked. I was standing now, my chair scraping back, and you never once asked how we were doing, or how we were paying for anything. You were too busy enjoying your beautiful life with your healthy children, Tesla, and European trips. Olivia, sit down, my father instructed. You're upsetting the children. I looked at my nieces and nephew who were gazing at me with wide-eyed terror. I felt horrible for scaring them, but the greater part of me, the one that had died with Sophie, didn't care. I'm disturbing the kids, I repeated incredulously. I witnessed my child die because you prioritized a private school education over her survival. I held her as she breathed her final breath, knowing we'd done everything we could, never realizing you had the funds to assist us all along. Do you know what it did to me? What had it done to Daniel? We dissolved our marriage due to anguish and financial disaster. I've lost everything, even myself. My mother was weeping now, mascara dripping down her cheeks. We felt it was too hazardous. She sobbed. The doctor stated that there was no assurance that the therapy would not work. At least with the school, we knew the money would be wisely spent. Used effectively. I couldn't believe what I heard. You risked with my daughter's life since there were no assurances. Every medical therapy has a risk, Mom. But she was 8 years old and struggling for her life. She deserved a chance. My father stood up and said, You need to calm down. We made the option that we believed was best. Lauren's children required private schooling more than Sophie needed to survive. Say it. I want to hear what you say. I was sobbing now too. Years of pain and hatred are spilling out of me. Tell me that your other grandchildren's education is more essential than Sophie's life. Lauren interrupted. That is not what we are saying. Olivia, you are twisting everything. Am I? I turned against her. So kindly untwist it for me. Describe how this makes sense. Describe how you can live with yourselves. Any of you? My mother shook her head and reached out to me. Olivia, please. We adore you. We adored Sophie. We felt we were doing the correct decision. We thought. You thought about yourself, I remarked plainly. You considered looks, Lauren's ideal family, and being the grandparents who could afford to send their grandchildren to top schools. You didn't consider Sophie, who was battling to breathe with her small body full of poison while attempting to kill the cancer. You didn't consider me, your daughter, breaking apart piece by piece. My father told me we couldn't afford both. So there it was. The truth was finally uttered out. We had previously agreed to assist Lauren with the school. We could not afford both. The admission lingered in the air like a noxious mist. Lauren seemed distraught. My mother sank back into her chair, and I felt something inside of me finally come apart. You chose, I responded gently. You had to make a choice, and you picked Lauren's children above mine. You choose private school above life itself. Sophie was going to die anyhow, my father explained. I swear time stopped. Even after therapy, the doctors gave her a 35% chance. It would have meant throwing money away. The sound that emerged from me was not quite human. Lauren gave a gasp. My mother let out a little scream. And when my father realized what he had said, he sought to backtrack. I did not mean Olivia. That turned out badly. Get away from me, I shouted, backing up to the door. Everyone, keep away from me. Olivia, please, my mother implored, attempting to approach me. Let's explain. You just did. I responded. You explained everything perfectly. Sophie's life was a poor investment. Lauren's kid's education was more valuable. 35% chances were insufficient for you to bet on your own granddaughter. I gazed at each of them, remembering their faces, knowing that this would be the final time I saw them as family. You know what's the worst part? Sophie adored you. Even at the hospital, while she was in pain, she would inquire about you. She'd want to video chat with Grandma and Grandpa. She created you drawings, which you presumably threw away. She had no idea that her own grandparents regarded her less than private school fees. That's not true, my mother sobbed. We adored her. Love is a verb. I said. It is more than simply a sentiment. It is action. And your actions demonstrated just where Sophie placed in your priorities. Dead last. I glanced to Lauren, who was silently weeping. Her pristine composure had finally snapped. I hope your children like their luxury school. I hope they appreciate the sacrifice that paid for it, even if they never learn how much it cost. Jake, the oldest at 13, had been watching everything with increasing fear. We didn't know, Aunt Olivia. I know, buddy, I said, my voice softening slightly for him. This is not your fault. None of this is your fault. But perhaps you should ask your mother and grandparents why your cousin Sophie isn't here anymore. Ask them about their options and priorities. I walked out of that house and have not looked back. My phone has been calling non-stop, but I've blocked all their numbers. Lauren attempted to enter my flat, but I threatened to call the police. I do not care about their explanations or arguments. There's nothing they can say to make things right. The day following the confrontation, I awoke feeling curiously depleted. Nor better, nor worse, simply hollow. I phoned in sick to both of my jobs because I couldn't move from my bed. I just laid there gazing at the ceiling, repeating every word from that supper in my head. Sophie was going to die anyhow. My father's comments echoed in my thoughts like a never-ending nightmare. Around midday, someone pounded on my door. Initially I disregarded it, but it persisted. Finally, I hauled myself up to peer through the peephole. It was Lauren, and she looked dreadful. Her lovely hair was a wreck. Her eyes were puffy from sobbing and she was still wearing what seemed to be pajamas. Olivia, please, she said through the door. Please, just let me explain. Let me talk to you. Go away, Lauren, I responded, without even opening the door. I didn't know, she cried. I swear to God, I didn't realize the entire amount of it. I believed they were only assisting a little, not paying for everything, and I had no idea they'd refuse to help with Sophie. I swear I didn't know. You're a liar, I stated bluntly. You needed to know. You had to know you weren't paying the tuition yourself. You needed to know where the money was coming from. Chris and I were paying a portion of it. She insisted. I assumed Mom and Dad were merely supplementing. Maybe a third or so. I did not ask inquiries since I did not want to appear ungrateful. Olivia, please trust me, but I could not believe her. I wouldn't since, even if she didn't know the specific sums, she was aware that our parents were providing significant financial assistance while I was drowning. She knew Sophie was unwell and we were struggling, but she never questioned the imbalance. She was pleased to take while her niece perished. Even if I believe you, I whispered through the door, it doesn't alter anything. You witnessed my pain. You watched what Sophie's death meant to me. You came to her burial in your fancy clothes and left early for soccer practice. You never once asked if we needed anything. You never offered. You simply took from them while I had nothing. I'm sorry, she sobbed. Olivia, I am deeply sorry. I didn't believe that was the issue, Lauren. You did not think. You didn't think about anyone but yourself and your ideal family. I put my palm on the door to feel the physical barrier between us. Leave. If you do not leave right now, I will phone the police. I heard her weep on the other side of the door for another minute before she departed. I fell to the floor, my back against the door, and sat until it was dark. Despite the fact that I had banned my mother, the SMS began to arrive. She tried many phones to reach me. Every message was a variant of the same thing. Please chat to us. We can explain. We adore you. It's all a misunderstanding. I read them all with distant numbness and erased them without responding. My father took a different approach. He contacted both of my places of employment, attempting to get me to speak with him. Samantha, the manager of the grocery shop, accepted the message and then brought me aside. Your father called, she said softly. He seems pretty desperate to talk to you. Is everything okay? Family stuff, I responded, not wanting to discuss anything. I'd appreciate it if you could stop routing calls from him to me. She nodded with understanding in her eyes. I will make a note, but Olivia, if you need time off or anything else, please let me know. Okay? I almost broke down in the middle of the store, but I kept it together. Barely. 3 days after the argument, Lauren sent me an email, a long meandering email that began with more apologies and justifications before taking an unexpected turn. She talked about how she faced our parents, how there had been another major dispute, and how our father realized they had made a decision and were stuck with it since they couldn't back out of their promise to the grandchildren's education. She claimed that our mother had justified their decision by claiming that the money would be wasted on Sophie because her prognosis was so dismal, and that at least with the school, they could see actual benefits. Lauren claimed she was appalled by this statement and that she told them they were mistaken, that they had made a terrible decision. But at the conclusion of the email, Lauren said something that made my anger boil. I would ask them to cease paying their tuition. I told them we'd find out how to fund it ourselves, or send the kids to public school. But, Olivia, they are our parents. They did a terrible mistake, yet they are still our family. Perhaps you will be able to forgive them in time for your own serenity. I read the email 3 times, each time becoming angrier. She asked me to forgive them. She assumed that discontinuing the tuition payments now, 6 years later, would somehow set things right. She still didn't get it. Neither of them did. I wrote back. It was the only message I'd sent to any of them since supper. I kept it brief. Lauren, you claim they made an error. Mistakes are accidents. Mistakes are mistakes in judgment that occur in the heat of the moment. They made a determined, purposeful choice. They prioritized your children's private school over my child's life. They decided to lie to me while my daughter died. That is not an error. That is a betrayal so deep and horrible that it cannot be reversed. Do not contact me again. I emailed it and then banned her email address. Daniel phoned me after I texted him that it was finished. He didn't say much, just asked if I was all right and if I needed anything. Then he asked, Sophie's medical fund, the GoFundMe. How much did it raise? About $15,000. I said, why? And how much did you say your parents spent on Lauren's children's education? $480,000 over 4 years. There was a prolonged pause. Olivia, I think we should speak with a lawyer. I hadn't considered legal action. But Daniel is correct. There might be a case here, especially because my parents openly refused to help while having the capacity to do so, causing Daniel and me significant financial difficulty. I'm meeting with an attorney tomorrow to discuss my alternatives. Not because I believe money will heal anything, but because they must face the consequences of their actions. People keep asking me whether I'm feeling better after the encounter and if I've found closure. The fact is that I do not feel better. I feel empty. I feel as if I'm mourning my family all over again, just as I did Sophie. But I also feel like I finally revealed the truth and stuck up for my kid, even if it's too late for her. Tonight, I visited Sophie's grave. I haven't been in a while since it hurt so badly. But I needed to tell her what I did. I sat in the dark next to her modest gravestone, which included a butterfly carving she would have adored. And I spoke to her. I told her about the encounter, the truth, and how I finally got them to admit what they'd done. I want to think she heard me. I'd like to think she understands that her mother battled for her, even if it was too late. I planted new flowers on her grave, including the yellow daisy she adored. I told her I would keep fighting. Not simply for justice, but to ensure that her memory is meaningful. If you're reading this and have children, grandchildren, or anybody you profess to love, keep this in mind. Love is more than simply words. It is a matter of decision. It's a sacrifice. It means sticking up for those that need you. Even if it is difficult, costly, or the chances are stacked against you. My parents had an option, and they chose incorrectly. They prioritized comfort over crises, image over action, and safety above sacrifice. And now they have to live with that decision, just as I must with the death of my daughter and the knowledge that she may have had a better chance if the people who were meant to love her had shown up when she needed them the most. I'm not sure what happens next. I'm not sure whether I'll ever talk with my parents or Lauren again. I'm not sure where legal action will lead. All I know is that I spoke the truth. I confronted them and did not back down. I stood firm for Sophie. That is all I have left to give her. The truth and the knowledge that someone battled for her, even if it was too late to help. Rest in peace, my dear daughter. Mommy loves you forever.